Proceedings are now resumed. Please be seated.
Other business motions. Private members motion number 8 of 2022, improving the traffic flow congestion in the eastern districts, to be moved by the elected member for West Bay West and seconded by the elected member for Bontown West.
I recognize the elected member for Red Bay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before we begin, I just wish to make an observation for the record that it is now 25 minutes to 4, and we have not yet begun to proceed on any private member's business. The point that I was striving to drive home earlier this morning.
I acknowledge the mention that the elected member for Red Bay has made. I now call on the elected member for West Bay West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move private members motion number 8, standing in my name.
Is there a seconder of this motion?
I have to read it.
Sorry, my bad. Thank you.
Moving private members motion number 8, standing in my name, which reads as follows. Whereas the Cabinet of the Cayman Islands in 2005 gazetted the East-West Arterial Road to be built immediately, whereas there is an increasing number of Caymanians who are past frustrated with the lack of urgency shown in improving the traffic congestion, and whereas the Eastern District residents are at a disadvantage in sleep quality and family quality because of the long commute to and from work, and whereas Eastern District residents are more prone to accidents and tiredness on the job, and these constituents are struggling to maintain a decent lifestyle, desiring just one more hour of sleep. Be it therefore resolved that the government considers building the East-West Arterial Road with immediate effect from Hurst Road to Lookout Gardens as the less environmentally sensitive area, and only continue with the EIA study from Lookout Gardens to Northside as the more sensitive area.
Is there a seconder to this motion?
Madam Speaker, as a representative of Bontown West in the Eastern Districts, I wholeheartedly, 1,000%, be very happy to second this motion.
The motion has been moved and is seconded and is now open for debate. Does the mover of the motion wish to speak thereto?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague, the member for Bontown West, for his endorsement and his seconding the motion. The motion, Madam Speaker, is entitled Improving Traffic Flow Congestion in the Eastern Districts. Madam Speaker, we are all aware of the daily traffic congestion and delays experienced by residents in the Eastern Districts. It is an increasingly frustrating issue for people in the Eastern Districts for business owners and operators, and for transportation providers. Madam Speaker, I don't know how much we pay attention to our census, but the number of people living in the eastern districts, 14,845 in Bordentown, 1,902 north side, 1,846 east end. That brings us to a total of 18,593 people living, Caymanians, in those districts. Now, to add to that, we have tourism that creates traffic in those areas, and we want more and more tourism to go east. And on top of that, we have other Caymanians who traverse those areas, people who own property, who live in other districts, people who have family, but they live in this side. They traverse those areas to look for their family, plus other events. Madam Speaker, there is debate all over the place concerning this matter. Because as people living here, we feel for what those people on that side of Grand Cayman is experiencing. I don't live in the East, but this is not just about the Eastern District, as I just tried to say. This is a national issue directly affecting the suffering people in Bordentown, North Side, and East End especially. And Madam Speaker, we have had discussions. We know about the environmental impact assessments. He was just reminded, but I read. That's one thing I've always been good at. And I know that other island nations do these studies. But above any study, above any environmental impact study, is the impact on people. And while some have labeled me anti-environment, I have a good enough record that I can defend myself when it comes to doing things in the best interest. And not to say that we can't do better. I believe we can. But I don't believe that any assessment should stop what we can do, knowing full well that don't affect the people that needs this redress. I don't believe that there is a law, I don't believe it, which override a national matter such as what our people are facing. The fact is, the road is gazetted, and gazetted before the law was brought into force. And I said it earlier, and I say it again. If they think that I'm a fool, and they think that I don't understand the current political environment in this country, they're making a big mistake. And I say this to every single one member living in Bordentown, East End, and North Side. They are going to use this road issue to defeat you all at the polls. Take warning. Madam Speaker, I know about these kind of things. I've been through it. I've seen what issues like this do. The only thing about this, Madam Speaker, different from the cadastral surveys, problems, etc., that back then they had Caymanians who got on the street and made one of the biggest demonstrations the country had faced. And I'll tell you what, if some of that 18,000 people gather themselves, you might just face that kind of issue down here because people are feeling it, and I will go on to tell you why. So, Madam Speaker, let all and sundry who want to debate, who want to continue to talk about the law, and I say this, and I said it when the law was being passed, if it proves that it affects the national interest while trying to protect a national interest, then something has to be done to balance that whole matter. You cannot have a board telling the country, telling the cabinet, you can't do this. And I'm not going to allow you to do this, and I can take you to court so you can't do this. Madam Speaker, I don't believe that that is right. And if we have a law that allows them to do it, which I believe is on the edge when they say that, I think it's on the edge. I think it's on the edge. I don't know all the sections of the law, and I might even disagree with the lawyers, but who am I? I'm just a layman, but I'm a practical one. I'm a practical one. If it meant that I must give general direction, that's what I'm doing. And then if you give general direction and that is not upheld, you do the next thing. You come down here with an amended law and take it out. Not to remove the law, because we do have and we need guidance. And we didn't get it before. We got some guidance in different ways. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this issue of a board telling the cabinet of this country that you can't do something as important as that, as is affecting nearly 20,000 people daily, and you can't move ahead fast enough to rectify it. And let us not say, but we're doing something. Yes, I'm not saying that there are not some movements being made, but there is a lot of movements that I believe is organized and generated to stop, slow down. And I don't think that that is right. I don't think that that is right. We cannot ignore the fact that people are hurting and children are hurting. Business is hurting daily in this country. And yes, there have been governments that could not move. We gazetted back in 2005. Other governments came and made different additions and tried to rectify different things. We put in the second lien in Bordentown, or wherever that started from, on that side. I guess more down from Savannah area, or that area. Mr. Gilbert McLean was the member then, minister then. So governments have tried to do things throughout the country. God, look at the pounding I took, and my government took, for moving the West Bay Road so that we could have another entrance or so into West Bay. Well, you know what that did? It was a good thing. But they didn't want that either. They beat me to pieces and accused me of everything in the world. They're still doing that. What that done has opened up West Bay to now where we have over 15,000 people living there and more coming, more and more development coming. So I want to see some things done so that we can protect ourselves. We got to do that. And it's not going to just be building a road. You're going to have to do more than that, Madam Speaker. Traffic and how we solve those problems. But those are other debates to take place. It is, Madam Speaker, affecting productivity and safety, there is a significant loss of productivity on a daily basis as a result of persons sitting in traffic for extended hours, extended periods. Residents in the Eastern District rise at ridiculous times in the morning just to get to work on time. Then they still get to work late, and they arrive back at home very late after work. For many months of the year, residents in some parts of the Eastern Districts leave their homes before the sun rises and get back home after dark. I'm sure the EIA, which is being done, will show what everyone already knows, that the loss of productivity from traffic congestion in the Eastern Districts amounts to millions of dollars each year if they go that far. If they just don't worry about a bit of grass, a bit of water, and some trees. If the assessment goes further than that, they can show those things. Those losses, Madam Speaker, are having negative impacts on business and commerce and are indirectly contributing to the increased cost of living, which affects residents all over the island, not only the residents that live in the Eastern Districts. As traffic congestion grows, the morning peak hour gets longer and the evening peak hour gets longer, so that the actual productive workday is becoming shorter. Family time is nearly non-existent, and the quality of life for persons experiencing the traffic congestion daily is extremely poor. Parents either leave their children at home with a helper or alone to wait for the school bus, or they spend time giving their children breakfast and dressing them and helping them with homework in the car on the way to school and work in the mornings. And we want to talk about an assessment. Assess that. In the evenings, children go home to helpers or to wait on their own until their parents return home after dark. Is this the quality of life our future generations deserve when we talk about how much we're looking out for them? And don't talk and come into this debate with anything about what else is causing it. We know other things is causing it, but we are addressing one of the big issues that are causing it. Families struggle. They struggle enough already with daily challenges. Adding traffic congestion, which deprive them of valuable time they could be spending together, makes it that much worse. Madam Speaker, while reduced travel times, less congestion, improved quality of life, and more family time are important, an even more important reason to expedite the construction of the road is to improve safety. There are some areas, particularly in the Lower Valley and Bordentown area, where the existing roads are very narrow, with little or no shoulders for pedestrians or cyclists. In these areas, there isn't much ability to widen the roads as there are houses close to the road. The solution to improve safety is to build the east-west arterial, which will provide an alternate route and reduce the volume on the existing road. And in those areas, because there are good communities there, people are gravitating to live there and building more homes. And we've seen all over the place subdivisions and new homes being built. And so, what you can say now? You can tell Caymanians, you can't go do that? Is that what the House will do? It's easy for people to sit in an office and draw up plans and think, we can do this. We can do that. We need to protect this, we need to protect that. But what of the person that is suffering and waiting and waiting and going through all kinds of struggles while that is being done? Those areas that I mentioned and other areas, Madam Speaker, are particularly dangerous areas with high volume of two-way, head-on traffic, and as mentioned, no space for pedestrians and cyclists. A significant amount of the traffic is dump trucks, concrete trucks, container trucks, and other heavy vehicles, and mixed with that are school buses, public transport, tour buses, residents and tourists traversing the road on a daily basis. And Madam Speaker, I don't know how many of us in this house, except for those that live up there and traverse there morning, noon, and night. I have some traversing there. I go there. You have to go to Savannah to the agriculture department. And when you see some of them big trucks coming, flying down the road, container trucks the same way. It's like they don't understand that the road's not built for speed, nor do we have the space if something happens to negotiate easily. Seems like they don't care, they don't understand. So as the traffic volume increase in those areas, so do the risk of head-on collisions. And statistics on car accidents show that we had an average of 56 car crashes a week in 2022, island-wide, totaling almost 3,000 last year, and sadly, with 15 fatalities. So you can say to me, what do you want us to do about that? I want you to alleviate some of it by doing some thing with the traffic in that area that takes it and makes it better, be able to negotiate the road better. Madam Speaker, I'm sure that we all remember Hurricane Ivan. I remember well. I tried to get up the East End and had to stop way down and walk because you couldn't get in a car. Only one road. And I remember well that the road from Bordentown to East End was completely blocked in several sections, and it took several days for the road to either be cleared or sections to be temporarily rebuilt in order to get supplies to East End. Supplies. The road along the coast is still vulnerable and likely to be sadly damaged or destroyed, God forbid, should we have another major hurricane. It was one of the main reasons in 2010 and 11 that I said we're going to move that stretch of road down there, which every year government have to spend millions and millions of dollars because the little northwesters that we get slammed into that lower end and blocked us sometimes. Traffic we found at times was held up till after 1 o'clock in the day. Can't get to work. We are an island. We are an island. And we have vulnerable areas that we have to take cognizance of. No, so a lot of things that maybe have done, shouldn't have been done. But we know the things that needs to be done now, so don't look back on those things and say, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. No. God forbid that we have another hurricane. The east-west arterial, Madam Speaker, will provide a strong, a safe, and resilient route that will be able to withstand major storm events and will ensure that the eastern districts are not cut off in such events. And that's why we're saying where it can go now. Because you're not going to have that kind of damage that we have to worry about the water runoff, the water settling, etc. We'll know that there are areas that NRA and whoever else are in the planning will have to be cognizant of. Madam Speaker, it is imperative that we don't wait any longer to build the east-west arterial and to build it to Lookout Gardens area in Bordentown, as this will address the concerns I have spoken about. It will reduce congestion and travel times for residents in the eastern districts, and it will improve the safety as well, reducing the chance of head-on collisions in the most heavily trafficked areas. Most of all, Madam Speaker, building the east-west arterial to Lookout Gardens immediately will improve the quality of life for all affected residents. And Madam Speaker, we can't wait any longer to do that. The residents in the eastern districts deserve and have the right to the same quality of life as all residents on our islands have. As the resolved section of the motion says, Madam Speaker, the section from Horse Road to Lookout Gardens is the least environmentally sensitive area. In this area, the road avoids or very minimally affects the central mangrove wetlands, which we all know are the most sensitive environmental areas. In fact, the area between Horse Road and Lookout Gardens is growing and developing as residential areas. So whether or not the road is extended, the area is being developed. The main concerns that were identified for this area for the EIA was storm water drainage and maintaining the natural flow of water. And I understand that hydrology studies are almost completed. That's what I hear. Once those concerns have been addressed, there's no reason the road cannot be continued to Lookout Gardens immediately. If we must wait until the completion of the EIA, then a period to design the road after that, it could be almost 2 years before the construction begins, another year or more of construction. Madam Speaker, the residents of the eastern districts cannot suffer another 3 years without safety improvements and resiliency, as well as reduced congestion and an overall better quality of life. I will stop there, Madam Speaker. I know other members want to speak, and I do hope that what I have said not offends, but rather informs or assists to inform. And bear in mind, the road is gazetted. Gazetted before the law was brought into force. Bear that in mind. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for West Bay North.
Madam Speaker, thank you. There's a saying, Madam Speaker, who feels it knows it.
True.
Madam Speaker, I've left West Bay 6:30 in the morning to go to Hell City to try to reach back to the GAB by 9. And I can get to Hell City by 7 o'clock. See who I have to see and leave out of there 7:30. And it will take me until 9 o'clock to get back from East End. Madam Speaker, and on my way up, I passed the lines as high as Bordentown, where the gas stations are. We've been blessed in West Bay, Madam Speaker. But when I realized how bad it was, the Ministry of Sports, from my very first speech, I said to this country, swimming is one sport that will help to put us on the map. And the former member, the former deputy premier, or the member from Bordentown West, has reminded me over and over about that speech when I said we must get this pool. But there are other deciding factors, Madam Speaker. Everything that happened has happened as I predicted. But, Madam Speaker, things fall in place. The Ministry of Education, Department of Education, has now worked with me that I'm now getting the swimming pool at Northside, at Clifton Hunter. We now have a swim team at the John Gray High School, which I'm sponsoring. And I have said to the members from Northside and East End, when the lessons start at Clifton Hunter, the two of you are going to have to sponsor either a Northeast swim team or a Clifton Hunter swim team, whatever it is. I say all that to say that when I went and found a coach that would help, do you know his first concern? Traffic. Getting there and getting back, he said, would be his major problem. He didn't ask for any pay. He's already gone through the light to darkness, everything. His one concern was traffic. So this problem must be addressed and addressed quickly. Whatever has to be done must be done. If we have to change the law, to change the law. But Cabinet must have its final say. We are who the people elected, and we were elected to defend and help our people. And to my team, every other government has had a chance. They've had 8 years, 4 years, 12 years, different amount of years, and they haven't done it. Let us be the ones to change it and get this correct. The people up on the east side of the country deserve some help. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member, the elected member for Bordentown East?
West side.
Bordentown West, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, Madam Speaker, I really want to thank the honorable member for West Bay West for bringing this motion to this House. Madam Speaker, this is one of the issues that most of the people that I represent in the Eastern District of Bordentown West, it is a big problem for them. A big problem, Madam Speaker. And I can tell you, I personally firsthand see it in my own household and also with others. When literally our kids and our families are leaving home while it is still dark. And Madam Speaker, woe be unto anyone if there is an accident early in the morning or an accident in the evening. We saw quite recently in Georgetown several months back, around Pirates Week, when there was a traffic jam, and everyone in Georgetown basically went crazy. And while for them it would have been an abnormal Friday evening, for those of us, or for many of us in the Eastern District, it was just another Friday. So I am happy to some extent that people in Georgetown had an opportunity briefly, while I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but to see what it is that the people in the Eastern Districts deal with on a daily basis. Madam Speaker, I came across this article and would ask Chris to give this to the Honorable Speaker for me, please. And I have some extra copies here if anybody want, they can go along. But the thing, Madam Speaker, that jumped out of me in this article, and the article was entitled, "How Sitting in Traffic Jam Can Harm Your Health." And the part I'm going to be reading with from Madam Speaker is when they were actually talking about pollution. And basically, I mean, it's a short article, so I'll just read it in its entirety. It says, traffic congestion increases vehicle emissions and degrades ambient air quality. Studies have shown excess morbidity and mortality for drivers and commuters, stressed and frustrated motorists, encouraging road rage and reduced health of motorists. Commuters who are exposed to air pollution, especially those riding in non-air conditioned vehicles, such as auto, e-rickshaws, cycle rickshaws, and motorcycles, double their health risk. Madam Speaker, it goes on to say, aside from chronic lung diseases, air pollution can cause blood pressure to rise and inflame the arteries, increase heart attack and stroke risks. Blood pressure goes up with increased traffic pollutants, and electrocardiogram changes show decreased blood flow to the heart. Pollution that gathers inside cars in traffic jams and at red traffic lights is far higher than that found in cars that are moving. It contributes to lung cancer, asthma, and other respiratory diseases besides heart disease and stroke. All of these can be fatal. Pollution at intersection is 29 times higher than those found in free-flowing traffic. At intersections, vehicles slow down, stop, rev up to move when lights turn green, and they are closer together. The cars move slowly, so the drivers are exposed for longer. As the output is ongoing, the pollution does not disperse, but lingers and accumulates. The cars waiting in traffic jams or at red lights contain up to 40% more pollution than those that are moving. Madam Speaker, it goes on to say, long commutes eats up exercise time and are associated with higher weight, lower fitness levels, and higher blood pressure, all strong predictors of heart disease, diabetes, and some types of cancer. Being exposed to the daily hassles of traffic can lead to higher chronic stress. One of the stress triggers while driving during a traffic jam is impatience, having to wait for the traffic to move and dealing with the mistakes of other motorists on the road. Impatience, if not handled at the beginning, tends to turn into resentment, aggressive driving, and anger, which all can lead to road rage. Stress is a killer disease that makes people vulnerable to other diseases and even depression. Madam Speaker, it goes on to also say, some commuters who are caught in traffic mess are also deprived of sleep, especially those that had to get up early the next day to avoid the morning rush and get to work on time. Sleep deprivation can also affect performance, attention, and long-term memory. Moreover, Madam Speaker, it says, lack of sleep can cause anxiety, exhaustion, frustration, impulsive behavior, lower immunity, and some mental health problems. It also encourages drug and alcohol use. Traffic jams also don't allow commuters to use restrooms if required, causing old enough urine for a long period of time, which can cause urinary infections. Urinary infections can sometimes be so severe as to cause acute urinary retention. If this happens in an elderly individual, it can lead to psychotic behavior. If a commuter held up in traffic jam feels thirsty and is not carrying a water bottle, it can cause blood pressure due to hydration. If a commuter stuck in traffic jam has a medical emergency like a heart attack, they might not be able to reach the hospital in time for treatment. Madam Speaker, when I came across an article and I looked at all the potential health risks that people face in traffic, and then when you go through the census and you look at some of Cayman's results that came from the census with regards to illnesses and so forth, many of those things raised are found with a lot of our people. And we have a tendency, Madam Speaker, to sit back and we sometimes blame a lot of different stuff. We blame if you look at most of the things, Madam Speaker, that affects us in Cayman, it is actually lifestyle. Some of the lifestyle we can say is our own. I like hamburgers, I like pizza, I like chocolate. That's something that I can personally fix in terms of from a lifestyle standpoint. But Madam Speaker, there are also other factors that are external, stuff that are beyond our people's control. And those are the things, Madam Speaker, that we need to fix. Madam Speaker, one of the things that had really boggled my mind maybe about a year or maybe a year and change ago when I did my medical was I found out that I had a vitamin D deficiency. And I remember doing a video on it, and there were many other people who came to me afterwards and said they actually also have a vitamin D deficiency. And that kind of really jumped out, Madam Speaker, because here we are living in the Caribbean. I mean, this is a tropical place. We got sunlight year-round. But the amount of our people that literally have a vitamin D deficiency, it is actually surprising. And then, when I really started to look at it, because I do have to take medication for it now twice a week in terms of the build-up vitamin D, and wherever I can get sunlight, I get sunlight. But Madam Speaker, that is something that's difficult for many families who their children are leaving to go to school or they're going to work when it is still dark outside. When they reach back home, it is dark. When they work inside the offices or the buildings that they're in, there's not enough sunlight. And Madam Speaker, yesterday when we were talking about the SPS and we were talking about health, these are the kind of things that we need to look at from a health standpoint in terms of what it is that we can do to help our people. And Madam Speaker, what I'm really happy that the member for West Bay West has brought this motion. Many of us in that side remember Hurricane Ivan. We remember Mariners Cove coming over into the street. And Madam Speaker, we were cut off from the other side of the island. No access to having an airport, no access to even a hospital. And now, Madam Speaker, once you pass, there say around Savannah Meadows, if there is an accident, that's it. The Eastern District is cut off. We are talking about tens of thousands of people being cut off from a lot of essential services in this country. And while I do understand, Madam Speaker, that, and I'll be the first to tell you that, a EIA needs to be done. Because, Madam Speaker, I can tell you, in my constituent of Bodentown West, we have sea level that ranges from 6 feet to 60 feet above sea level. And equally, Madam Speaker, I'm also conscious of the drainage of where our water from that area runs off into the wetlands. And I'm conscious, Madam Speaker, that if you go and put a road there, and you know the proper drainage and the proper everything there, I may end up creating a bowl for my people to live in. And I can tell you there are members inside this house. I mean, I can tell you there are people in Comba Avenue and different places will tell you that once the road went in behind, they literally became a bowl, and every time there's a heavy rain that comes down, they're basically flooded. So it can't be a situation where I have to sit down and choose between traffic or your home being flooded. In this body, Madam Speaker, we have enough intelligent people, and I can tell you, I've dealt with staff at NRA. We have very competent people over there. They know where the culverts, they know the drainage, and I can say that the minister is also one of them who's also very passionate in terms of actually getting things done. And this is the kind of infrastructure that will actually be meaningful to people's lives. It will actually impact people's lives in a positive way. And Madam Speaker, the one thing that when the member from West Bay West brought this motion to me, that really brought it home for me, was just one simple phrase. One more hour sleep. That's all we're asking for our children, our grandchildren, and our parents, and everyone in the Eastern District. We just want one more hour sleep per day. Last night, Madam Speaker, I left here early. Well, I thought I left early. I did almost around 11:15. I understand you guys went on to 1:30. And my reason, Madam Speaker, was that my son started his first O-level exams today. And I wanted to go home and at least see him before he went to sleep, because I knew he was up last night doing his last-minute preparations and everything. And I had to do that, Madam Speaker, because I know you'd have to be out of that house at 6 o'clock this morning. And then basically stop and get breakfast along the road, sometimes if you don't get up that early enough. And I had to go home just to see him at that time, because I know I was going to see him this morning. And the question is, Madam Speaker, how many people also, especially when you have two-car families where one parent is going out early to do school run or whatever, you don't even get to see your kids in the morning sometimes. Sometimes you don't get to see other family members because they leave out so early sometimes. So I say, Madam Speaker, when we talk about improving the quality of people's lives, these are the kind of initiatives. And as the government is preparing the budget for this year, I am looking forward to ensuring, I would love to see funds being set aside to at least get some kind of traffic or some kind of movement on this road. It's been now since 2005 this road has been gazetted. Hurricane Ivan was just, almost 19 years ago. Almost a whole generation it's going to take us to basically get this road in. And this is high time this needs to be done. I can tell you also, Madam Speaker, that a lot of people coming from the further east be cutting through northward, cutting through Wilty area and so forth, which is also using residential areas as literally a kind of highway to some extent, just trying to cut traffic out, just trying to get around and so forth, which is also making some of our neighborhoods unsafe. So, Madam Speaker, I am very happy that the member for West Bay West brought this, and I'd like to sincerely thank him very much on behalf of the people that I represent in Bodentown West, and I'm going to thank everyone in advance for actually supporting this motion, because this is the kind of motion, this is the kind of infrastructure development that actually makes a difference in people's lives. And as you said before, my member, my good friend from West Bay West, 1 more hour sleep. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? The Honorable Minister for Planning, Agriculture and Infrastructure.
Madam Speaker, I rise this afternoon here to offer my support to this private member's motion to improving the traffic flow congestion for the eastern districts by building the east-west arterial from Hearst Road to Lookout Gardens, commencing immediately. Madam Speaker, as the elected member for the constituency of Northside, providing additional traffic solution is significant to my constituents. Madam Speaker, it should come as no surprise that I believe that those who live in the eastern districts deserve shorter commute times, as we heard speakers already said. The current commute experience for my constituency can be described as one word: unacceptable. Madam Speaker, I would like to state that the increase in traffic flow supports broad outcome 3, providing a solution to improve the well-being of our people so they can reach their full potential. Simply put, shorter commutes mean there is more time for family, community, and communities, and more time for individuals to spend with their children. Madam Speaker, when I travel in the afternoon going back up to the eastern side of the islands, and I see so many children alongside the roads or just playing out, and you wonder, you know, they're waiting on their mother or father to come from work. And, you know, there a lot of idle time out there for them. There's no quality family times in the Eastern Districts, Madam Speaker. For those that have to come to this Georgetown and spend over 90 minutes or more than that sometime to get back to the Eastern Districts, that is unacceptable. Madam Speaker, the mental health of our people by spending less time in vehicles, not just from East End and North Side, but from Bordentown, as the elected member from Red Bay said, Prospect, those areas also, Marina Drive, Savannah, even the people in Newlands, they're affected by it too, sir. They're all affected by it. Madam Speaker, to paint a picture, according to the data from NRA, as I said before, those traveling from Local Garden, from the Bordentown East, have an average commute of 55 minutes each way. That means that by the end of a 5-day work week, assuming one trip into Georgetown, Madam Speaker, when we start to look at it, these drivers are spending almost 10 hours in their vehicle for the week. Madam Speaker, those traveling from North Side during the peak hours spend an average of 90 minutes. And this is in our statistics because they did it. I think it's a little longer than that. Madam Speaker, for me, sometimes to get to that government building by 7:15, 7:30, I have to be up from 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I have to be out of my door before 5:15 if I want to get there. If I want to get down to the radio station, because I'm going to be on the radio in the morning, I better make sure that I have everything ready, that I can come out of my door by 5:15. Madam Speaker, if I don't come out by 5:15, I can find the traffic by Moon Bay. I've seen pictures where it's been almost a Frank Sound. Madam Speaker, this is a national importance. We're talking about improving the quality of people's lives. Madam Speaker, this is one of it. Improving the quality of lives. Madam Speaker, there are so many things that my people in North Side would love to do in the afternoons, go to PTAs, and they can't get to them. And we wonder why some of our children become the idle hand of the devil's playground. Because they're affected, they don't have a father or mother be able to spend that last them hours at times when they get out of school with them. Some of my people, by the time they get to North Side, they're saying, well, I'm so tired I can't even get to my PTA meeting tonight. Or we got to host a meeting for the district councils or whatever we're doing around 8 o'clock at night. Right? Because by the time they get that way, get to the children home, they probably grab one meal to eat, there's no time then left for them. There's no quality time for the people in the eastern side of the island. Madam Speaker, I don't think nobody in this house here says that the EIA shouldn't be done. But Madam Speaker, we have to realize too at the same time, people's lives matter. If we are so worried about the environment, the member from Bordentown West just listed out a bunch of statistics that I actually had. It looked like he got a copy of my report too. So I had to cut that out. out of my speech here, and I just crossed it out. Because I'm not going to bother repeat it again. But he just mentioned it. Is that not part of fixing the environment? But yet we want to talk about region, right? But this pollution is on this side. Oh, we're not worried about that. Allow the Caymanians to stay in traffic. The poor, only the poor people live up that side, and we don't worry about them. Right? That is how the people feel right now. We talk about that we are here for the people of this country. Madam Speaker, I was elected to make sure that I support the people of this country so that they can have a better life. Madam Speaker, so when I talk to the people in RA, and they say, we really don't need an EIA for that section of the road. What we need is just to make sure that we are putting the culverts in the right places so that, as a member for Bodentown West stated earlier, that we're not holding up the water on one side to be able to flood, causing a flooding issues for those in the Wilty area, the northward area, and going up other directions. But Madam Speaker, one thing really jumps out to me is the section of Newlands area, from Newlands to Wilty, there was no need for an EIA there. And Madam Speaker, that is where the lowest point is right now. And Madam Speaker, that development is already built around the road. But it wasn't no need for it there. But now, as soon as you get out from there now, we need you to put up there.
Honourable Member, we have now reached the hour of 4:30. Can I have a motion for the suspension of Standing Order 10.2 to continue past the hour of 4:30?
Madam Speaker, sorry.
Honourable Premier.
Madam Speaker, I rise to move the suspension of Standing Order 10.2 to enable the business of the House to continue beyond the hour of interruption.
The question is that Standing Order 10.2 be suspended to enable the business of the House to continue beyond the hour of 4:30. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. Honourable Minister, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are talking about a road that was gazetted from 2005. Madam Speaker, it seems that people that have been here have forgot the aftermath of Ivan, what it did, the destruction it did through Bodentown, East End, where that section of us was cut off. But no, we still can't put no road through them. Everything to the eastern districts is called wetland now. It's a new term for swampland up that way now. Wetland. I don't know, and then it turn around, they don't have no more value to it. Oh, we come up there, we want to buy your land where my grandfathers and my Northsiders have been kept and try to to pass down to their children for so many years. But now they decide, no, you know what, it don't make no sense for them to hold the land no more because, you know what, my children probably never can get to it. So I might as well sell it to the developers and make them have it. And then I get to enjoy the money, at least. It looks like that is what is done. Madam Speaker, I'm almost convinced that this road some people don't want this road to start because certain people don't own the land yet in the places where it got to go. That is what I believe in it is. But we're going to see today who supports this road. We'll see. Madam Speaker, this general route was once before in a pre-survey, a geotechnical analyst, and therefore it can be described as not as anything as pristine habitat as they talked about, because when the Honorable Arden McLean was Minister of Road, Madam Speaker, he cleared the whole path. He cleared the road from Newlands to Frankstown. So people go out there and tell them, oh, they show this beautiful picture of up in the eastern districts. Beautiful. Nice photo, but nothing to do with the road. Nothing to do with the road at all. Madam Speaker, if you go on Google Maps today, you can see the trail that Mr. Arden McLean has cleared from then to do all the testing so that we could know what we were preparing ourselves for to go forward. So you hear all these people get on this bandwagon and say, oh, we're going to tear up all these mine roads, we're going to tear up all this. Nonsense. It's already gone. This road is only not even going through not even 1% of what they call wetland. I know I got it somewhere here, but it was some, I think coming from the Department of Environment office, was 8,500 and something acres of land, not even 1% of that. I got it somewhere around among these papers. But again, there is a pitch out there that we're tearing this new wetland. Oh, they're going to town, man, because, they want to push development up that way now. They want to push development. But nobody no worry about the young Cayman that can't get a house. Nobody no worry about him, or he must go and pay top dollar for land prices. Madam Speaker, it is really disturbing that we even have to come, it has to come down here to this for us to even debate this, to even talk about it. We shouldn't have to go to this. Madam Speaker, this to me is of international importance, as it is building a house and allowing our Caymanians to own their own home. It is up there in the same brackets. We just need to figure out where our priorities are and remind ourselves who we represent. Remind ourselves who we represent. Madam Speaker, because I don't know who some people represent in here, but I know who I represent, because it seems like this has become a political football. And they want to kick it this way, want to kick it that way, and say some people support it, this one support it. Oh, I don't know if I can support it, But you know what? I might hide around the back when this come down. But we gonna see who can support it today. We gonna see who can support it today. So tell them to go hide and make the people, because you know what? You fooled them one time, but you won't fool them again. So let's see. Let's see. We'll see how many times we're going to get kicked around this place today. Madam Speaker, every single government before time had the opportunity to build this road too. Had the opportunity to build this road. And not one person, not one of them, actually got up and said, you know what, we're going to the north side, to Frankstown. And then we're going to East End. I must give the progressive government the last time that Mr. Arden was there, that was a good push. They were building roads and we were going east and all kind of things then. But it seems like we have slowed down. But, Madam Speaker, it was that because at the time we weren't sitting apart on one side of the field. Madam Speaker, I was embarrassed this morning to sit here and listen to the back and forth over one small little thing. I said, look at these kindergarten children up in there. I imagine the children could be watching this now. I said, look at my world leaders. Look at them. It took us over half an hour back and forth when we could have probably just got through the whole thing and been done. Matter of fact, we've been further ahead now. If we had just continued going how the order paper was from this morning, probably been way out the door now. But no, we had a back and forth, like a ping pong ball, up and down. Madam Speaker, the people of the Eastern Districts, as the Minister for Bordentown East always say, just one more hour. Just one more hour. Can we get one more hour of sleep? Now I know that people out there saying, boy, I don't believe the minister support our road, you know. You see him doing all kind of things in town, and doing the road in town, but I don't see him saying anything about he coming east to fix our road east. Madam Speaker, there's nobody who want that road more than me. I would donate my time in the night to go start push it if I had the opportunity to go. But Madam Speaker, I have people around me that have to agree with me for me to get there, you know. They have to get on board with me to get there to north side. I don't think they're going to play this football game and say that, he the minister of road, you got to go talk to him. What Mr. Arden said the other night at the meeting, if your side the boat leaking, my side leaking too. So we all in one boat together. So when they come and they say, boy, how come you not pushing that? I hope I can stand up and tell the people why. Because we are waiting on one study. Madam Speaker, a study that has almost doubled its price. Doubled its price since we had the meetings. Now, I don't know, but far as I see, and my mind tells me, something is wrong there because there got to be some roadblocks in the middle of that. And to tell me now that cabinet can't go, or this parliament can't go, and tell us say that we can go and start that road is a serious problem. We need to figure out where part of the roadblocks are. Because there's no one entity or no one department that should be bound in this parliament. I never signed up for this. I never signed up for nothing in cabinet to know that cabinet ministers or members in this parliament don't have as much powers as they thought they had. That one board or one person got more power than everybody else. Madam Speaker, if it is certain laws that need to be changed, it needs to be changed. I don't care who brought the law. It needs to be changed. So don't tell me there was no perfect law. But don't tell me that you're going to bound everybody had some of the highest people in the land hand that we can't get it done. And we can't say, well, yet we speak about it. But I thought it in this, we spoke about it in the last SPS. We're speaking about it again in this SPS.
And the excellent notice. And the last one.
And it was in the opposition SPS too.
The last one they did, yeah.
So it has been traveling, but it's not going nowhere. But it's traveling in every document that comes to this parliament. But yet, we still can't carry it for those people up Bordentown, or those people in East End, or those people in North Side. Right? Madam Speaker, all it takes is one accident. One single accident. And you can't get cross. Madam Speaker, I remember people just a few weeks ago in that building tell me they wasn't leaving the building till later on because there was an accident. The road was blocked up so much. So they decided to stay in the building. I don't need to call his name. He knows who he is. But yet, we see the problem. We hear the problem. Man, you can look out the window too, you know, and you can look right across the quickest speed. You can see the traffic backed up. Oh, we see it. But you know what? I got to stay here a little longer because I not got to join them. Madam Speaker, I have been in that traffic that when accidents happen, that I had to pull off the road to sleep because it's 5 o'clock in the morning before it was clear. I've had people here come to this country that love this country and have missed their planes because of an accident that they could not get back to the airport. No. Go back and look at the reviews when the people write about that. But yet, we want more tourists to the island. And we want to push them. Let's go east. Let's go east, man. Let's get east and going. Well, Madam Speaker, we have to put the infrastructure in. There's not one country that can survive with a one-way lane coming in and out. Madam Speaker, what happens in the day that the road is blocked and my people in Northside have to get back to the Georgetown Hospital and they can't get there by the ambulance because of a serious act, something? Madam Speaker, God forbid anything would ever, natural disaster will happen, and the police and everybody from this side had to get to the eastern side of the island to help our people. Or we're going to make the helicopter make 100 trips to get them there? No, we don't think about that. One earthquake can cause a big damage. And we have one single road that is blocked away, and nobody from Georgetown could go help our people in the eastern districts. No one. Madam Speaker, this one rides heavily on my heart. Heavily, heavily on my heart. Madam Speaker, when I walked into these halls, I never thought I would have the task to build this road. And when I finally knew that I had the task to build this road, I was happy because I said, you know what? We going east. We going east. I've told them people, I sat down, I told my members alongside of me, I said, guys, we building and we going east. I've asked the Deputy Premier at the time, support me with the money for this road. And he did so. But again, we ran into a little roadblock again. So sometimes the money is there, and then you got a roadblock. So you know what we did then is we tried to make sure that we fix all of the other parts of the roads, get rid of all of the bottlenecks, widen the lanes going down to, I think that is considered what, Crichton Boulevard down the back there, heading to Newlands. Widening that now, getting prepared that by time east, this road is ready, all of that is done. We're ready to go. And I have to thank the minister, the previous minister for roads, because he laid a lot of the groundwork so that we could get going. So I can thank him. I don't. There's no need to say to deny that. That is exactly true, sir. Some plant and some water. But there's days that he watered off of the previous minister too. So he had his opportunity. But I thank you, Mr. Hugh. From the bottom of my heart, I really thank you, sir. Madam Speaker, all I am saying, I'm going to make this very short because I'll say we shouldn't really even be down here about this thing. It is it is really hard to be down here to talk about this. And I tell you, decisions really weigh hard on top of your shoulder. I've heard people talk about they have the devil on one shoulder and the Lord on the other one sometimes. But I'm carrying the burden of East-West on my shoulders. Burden of it. And I tell you, future decisions have to be made. And I'm hoping that my colleagues that sit on this side is supportive of this road. Supportive of this road. Madam Speaker, I'm hoping when the budget come up that we are supporting because we talked about it again. Yes, because this is the one thing you mightn't like what I tell you. But what I tell you is going to be the truth. And I ain't going to lie to my people. Don't put it in the SPS if you're not planning to deliver it. Tell the people straight and honest. Let's be honest because we can move and look on to something else to do something else. Let's not leave a false dream or a false hope that we're coming to deliver. We're coming to you. That's the politics of it, ma'am. I don't play politics with my people in my district. I'm not playing it like that. Madam Speaker, I promise my people that I will always be straight and honest with them. And sometimes that might not be the best thing, they say. Because sometimes you get a lot of people hate you because you tell them the truth. But you know what? At least they can go back and say, boy, he was straight and honest with me. So, Madam Speaker, all I am saying is that I am in full support of this motion here today. We need to remind ourselves who we were elected for. We need to remind ourselves. Because you know why? Sometimes we get lost within that 1 and 2 and 3 year period. But then when that 9-month period come in, oh man, boy, you remember every soul Tom, Dick, Harry then. Even the ones you used to cross on the road, you say, I'm not picking him up. Oh, I'm going to pick him up now. Boy, how you doing today? Right? That's the only time that some people remember people. You know, I remember saying to myself, boy, I always admire the way that the Honorable KT, Kurt Tibbetts, did his politics. And as I call him, the kingmaker. Let me tell you, that man touched his people all the time, checked on them, made sure they were all right. Madam Speaker, and I said to myself, I want to make sure that I be exactly like that. I want to make sure that I never forget my people, that I make sure I go look for them, I make sure that I'm there for them. If they call me no matter what. Madam Speaker, any one of my people, no matter where it is, can call me any time of night. I don't hide my number from nobody. Now, it may be times that I can't answer my phone, like no. And I can't even, nowadays, you don't know if you even get a driver to support you, but they want you to be down here until 2 o'clock at night. But nobody don't worry about us going to the east. That's another thing. All of the ministers around here should have their own drivers. You go to every country, else country, they treat you good as gold. Give you a car, even give you security. But when you come back, even to the deputy governor, could tell you, when he go away, probably the only governor that actually has a walk or go move around because he never had no car and everybody else pulling up. But yet we are the jewel of the Caribbean. But we treat our own self the worst. And Madam Speaker, one thing, and I remember seeing one thing the other day with Mr. Jimmy Fox had got ill, and he was working on a movie, the last part of it, and quick as that, they replaced him with a stunt. I remind you, if I run off on the road out there too, or anything happen to me, they'll replace me just like that. They may want probably replace me now too, just like that. Because you know why? I don't know yes man. And I got asked the hard questions. Now you're going to have to win me over because I was elected as an independent member. I'm not a park member. I am an independent member of the park government. Amen. And I will continue asking the hard, tough questions. Now some people might like it, but they're going to have to put up with me. Or they can always tell me, look, I don't want to work with you no longer. And Madam Speaker, I never hitch no ride down there. My car's out there. My car's always right there. She's ready to go any time of the week. In my bags, I carry everything in one bag all the time. Because nowadays, you don't know. Oh, Madam Speaker, I just want to tell you, we need to get this road done. If this motion here today can't push this road forward, then we need to have another conversation amongst ourselves. And we need to figure out, as I said before, what is going to take us to get there. And as I said, I'm hoping that the colleagues around here are supporting this budget coming up to make sure we have sufficient funding to build the road. Because I can see plenty of funding coming down the road. And it might be misdirection to different areas. But I know one thing, my people didn't sign me on here just to say yes to something. So, Madam Speaker, as the Minister for Transport also just recently, I know there's other things that we need to implement, and we're looking to putting in maybe even a dedicated lane going through our east-west. Once we were even looking at putting in a service lane for east-west, because we want to put all the ducking in there, that we don't have this problem that we have now, where every time something happens, you got water authority, you got this one have to dig up road, or you got a poles here or something. We want to make sure that all of that is on one in a service lane, so it does not upset or uproar the flow of the traffic. We want to have that there. We need to put this ducking in there too. We want to do it sustainable too. Madam Speaker, I remember I saw a photo with the center part of the east-west had solar panels going down through the middle of it. And I said, well, boy, you're talking about sustainability. I know, boy, you can move trees out of the way, build your road, use the medium for solar, and boy, that's almost a win-win. I mentioned that to a few people, but up to today, I not hear a word back on it. Whether we should do it, I've asked in our to even look into it to see, because I tried to balance. There's not one person out there that can say that I never met with them. I sat down with the environmentalist people. I sat down with the mango rangers. I sat down with sustainability Cayman. I sat down with this one. I've heard them all out. I spent time with them. I tried to come to one compromise with them on how we can actually move forward. I had to get everybody on. National Trust, I met with them. Oh boy, they were on board too. Just don't come in my land. That's what all they want. Don't come in their land. But then they won't tell at the same time, go in this man's land. And then they get up and want to tell him, you shouldn't be building in your land, but they just put the road in his land. Madam Speaker, if they were so worried about keeping the side of the roads green, and they wanted to own two sides of the road that nobody would build on it, shouldn't I be going through their land? I should be going through their land. That way they can say, well, boy, they own the two sides of this road, and you know what, nobody's not going to build on this. But no, they tell me, no, we want you to move this. You want to move this road, you got to move this and bend it this way and carry it this way and carry it around and, carry it through these people's house here. But not worried about who living there. But just to get it out of their way, carry it through their house. Buy that house, yeah. I heard a lot of talks too. Oh, we should be going up high, building a bridge and go across. But not one soul, remember, it takes cash to care. It takes cash to care when it comes. But when you tell them how much it's going to cost to start to do that, oh my God. Right? That's what it is. Oh my God, then. We didn't realize it would cost that much. Madam Speaker, this particular road, and I'm hoping to hear from the rest of my colleagues here today, that they are supportive of this road, because I know I am. Politics one side. I know sometimes we joke amongst each other, But I do, deep down, I do believe the opposition supports this road too. At least I know the minister from Georgetown North supports it. I know the minister from the individual from Red Bay supports it. I've heard him publicly say it. I see Mr. Moses Kokona put his hand up and say that he supported it. So I really do believe that the opposition supports it. So from Cayman Black West, sorry. I agree with you 100%. Member for Red Bay. As I said, we shouldn't even be here. Let's just get to the vote of it. I think I've said enough on it now, ma'am. I think I'm going to leave it to whoever else. But I just want to say, there's not one soul out there that can say that J.E. Banks don't support this road. I 100% support building this road. And I want them to know that. So nobody don't point their fingers at me and say, I don't support this road. Because I'm telling them, anytime I find the roadblocks, I come into the people and tell them what the roadblocks are. And as the people will see in the next coming months, they will see how much funding will be in the budget for it too. For the East-West. We'll see. We'll see. We'll definitely find out and see. But I hope to continue this conversation in a few weeks in Cabinet when we bring this to Cabinet to get it sorted out. And then we'll go from there. We'll take it from there too. Because as I say, it rests heavily on my shoulders. And people's faith determining the direction they go. And I'm telling you now, I'm hoping that I have the support for it. And I'm not just being misled blindly. Because, as I said, this little small bag is always packed. So, I thank you all, and you all have a good day.
Does any other member wish to speak? The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I don't have very much really to say because we have listened to the debate and rationale for what is being proposed. And Madam Speaker, I recognise we have another 7 private members' motions to consider. So maybe in the interest of moving things along, I'd like to signal to the Parliament that the official opposition will support the motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? The Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the private member's motion before us today is motion number 8 of 22-23, and it states improving the traffic flow congestion in the Eastern Districts. There are 4 whereas, and there are 2 that really stands out to me that affects the people in the constituency that I represent. And I just want to read those, Madam Speaker, and it says, and whereas the Eastern District residents are at a disadvantage in sleep quality and family quality because of the long commute to work, to and from work. And whereas Eastern District residents are more prone to accidents and tiredness on the job, and these constituents are struggling to maintain a decent lifestyle, desiring just 1 more hour of sleep. Madam Speaker, The alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning for the average person that lives in East End. And let's just say they have 2 kids that goes to school in Georgetown. Shortly after that, the kids get up, get dressed, get ready, and they leave East End at 5:30 in the morning. The kids finish their sleep in the back of the car. They get to town fairly early because they got up that early to avoid the traffic. Kids go inside with the parent. Parent gets breakfast for them and then takes them to school. This affects the quality of life because on the return journey, they go back home when it's night. When the kids get back home, parents hustling, bustling, preparing meals for them to eat, and they go straight to bed. No quality of life. But the move of the motion spoke earlier on the growth of the district, namely Bordentown, Northside, and East End. And based on the 2021 census, the Eastern District grew in that period of time from 2010 to 2021 by 31.2%. This shows while not growing as much as some of the other districts that's considered Eastern districts, shows that we are growing as well. But that means with us growing, there's more cars on the road and more risk for accidents. More risk for accidents with one road certainly creates a major problem. All the speakers before me has mentioned one thing in common: the experience of Hurricane Ivan. At that time, I was living in West Bay, and my parents in East End. And it was difficult, extremely difficult, trying to make my way to East End to check on my parents. Huh? And getting past that, still had the same problem. Single road going to East End after you pass. Single lane going to East End after you pass the Savannah Newlands area. But God forbid if there's an accident, even a small accident, and it's even worse if somebody dies. You can't get through and do business. The member from Northside spoke about tourism and how it affects tourism, and people get left when the flight leaves without them. We must be able to find solutions to this current problem. And I want to state for the record as well too that this is a very emotive and vexing issue for the people of East End, the people who gave me the job to stand here representing them today. It's a very emotive issue for them. And I stand to say that I support the construction and building of this road. While it's not a panacea, because other measures and other solutions have to be undertaken. And again, the member from Northside, who's also the minister for NRA, spoke about that briefly as well. The government is quite aware, and they are working hard to try and ensure that the solutions they find will provide relief to 18,500 people that live Bordentown, Northside, and East End. The member from Bordentown West touched on productivity. And a quick calculation using the basic minimum wage we're losing an average $250,000 a day. That's just my quick calculation. That's the 18,500 persons divided by 2 times 6 times 4. $250,000 a day we lose in productivity. But that is very, very, very conservative. So we know that with the getting up early, getting home late, and Madam Speaker, what actually just came to mind is when one of our young parliamentarians mentioned in their debates that it's no longer 9 to 5, it's 5 to 9. 5 a.m. in the morning to 9 p.m. at night. But I'm going to change that a little bit. It is 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. for us in East End. And I don't want nobody to take it that just because I'm elected I can come to work anytime. I leave home and I do it deliberately to see the traffic patterns coming from East End to Georgetown. And I've recorded several of them. I make notes of where I am at certain times. And on average, when I drive out of my yard in East End at 2662 Seaview Road, East End, to come to the government building, it's 2.5 hours minimum. Everybody knows where I live, BT East. They found it a few days after the election, so I don't think they forgot it. But the other members has also spoke passionately on this, especially the member from Northside. And while I don't want to go too much into their contribution, I want to say that I support this. But yes, there are also some environmentally sensitive areas that we have to also consider mitigation risks. But we must do that along with other measures to alleviate the traffic issues. And it can mean making and taking some hard decisions too. I mean, the member from Red Bay didn't agree with some of the decisions that we take, like restricting the importation of cars and stuff like that. But certainly, these are issues that must be considered as well. And then there's the other impacts like mental health issues, environmental impact from what the member from Bodden East mentioned about engines running. For example, 3 hours from East End, engines running for that whole 3 hours. Road rage because you're so frustrated. And not just the productivity on the way to work, but the productivity at work as well is affected. Madam Speaker, I'm not going to claim that I'm an environmentalist, but I understand how important the environment is to us, especially with global warming. But again, I cannot in good conscience not support this motion on behalf of the constituents who elected me to represent them and who has been advocating to me for relief. And again, I'm by no means advocating that we must do the construction without due consideration for the environment. But we must do something in the near term to give our people hope and to ensure that their quality of life improves. But while I will be satisfied in the near term with the road getting to Frank Sound, I do expect, and I will be advocating as well, for it to eventually come into East End to the High Rock Road and have the John McLean Drive connect with it somehow. But we must put our collective efforts together to provide relief to our constituency, especially in Bodden Town, North Side and East End. But this is a very, very emotive issue that not only East End, as a matter of fact, you heard a member from North Side, you heard a member from Bodden Town West, and also the member from West Bay West. West Bay West? Yeah. West Bay West, who doesn't even live in East End but understands the ramifications of how we have progressed over the last several years. So, Madam Speaker, while I won't repeat a lot of what has been said already, I just want the people of East End to know that this is something that I support, and the whole Cayman Islands know that I support the building of this road and taking due consideration to those environmentally sensitive areas. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? The Honorable Member for Bordentown East. Honorable Minister for Bordentown East.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much, and I want to thank all those members who remember the very catchy phrase, and one more hour sleep. Madam Speaker, I rise to give my contribution on this motion, number 8 of 2022-23. Madam Speaker, this is a national issue on the subject of traffic. And I've not only got calls, Madam Speaker, and pics of our traffic woes from my constituents, but from persons overseas in Fort Lauderdale who love their island, but their main concern was traffic, as said before. Can't get to work, can't get to school, can't get to lunch, can't get sleep, can't get your loved ones, can't get to your loved ones after a storm, can't get to the airport to catch your flight because of a simple accident. You know why? Because of traffic. Madam Speaker, if your commute has you sitting in traffic for a prolonged period of time, doctors have a warning for you. New neuroscience research from the University of British Columbia shows exposure to traffic pollution even as little as 2 hours leads to decreased brain function. Carbon monoxide poisoning from sitting in a car too long, and high concentrations of the carbon monoxide in less than 5 minutes can kill. And the list goes on. Madam Speaker, I have a personal experience with this. It happened just this morning when I got home from a long session of Parliament trying to do the people of this country's business. Got home at 2:12 this morning, Madam Speaker. Most people who would have saw me on the road would think I'm coming from somewhere else. They didn't take a picture. Madam Speaker, my young children who are under 10 woke me up at 4:30, wanting to get ready for school. Madam Speaker, they are up playing at 4 a.m. and out of house at the dark. They get home in the dark. So, Madam Speaker, people who have children older don't have the same concern. Persons who are retired in Georgetown don't have the same issue. We as parents in the eastern districts are the ones who are also suffering. If you want to take your wife or your husband or a friend for dinner after work, you have to go to the restaurant in the same old 14-hour clothes and 14-hour bath. Not that fresh feeling and new garbs that all would feel so nice in. We are suffering, Madam Speaker, in every kind of way. And when I call for a public meeting, Madam Speaker, at 7 p.m. in the evening, it's so hard for persons of the public to hear what their leaders have to say in person. Imagine the constituents can't even get home to cook for their families anymore. And Madam Speaker, I must not offer my constituents food at my meetings, Madam Speaker, and they say that's treating. But Madam Speaker, treating it shall be, turtle and count. I understand the concerns of my people. I understand what it means to get one more hour sleep, Madam Speaker. And I'm not going to be long on this. A lot has been said. This politics thing is serious, Madam Speaker. Imagine, especially for Bordentown, the people of Bordentown for 40 years had asked for a public dock and a public boat ramp. Just for an example, Madam Speaker. And it took little old me, the unassuming one, to come along and say, let me tick off all these things that politicians throughout the years were using as a political football to try to win their seat back, promising this and promising that. Madam Speaker, I don't want to promise the East-West anymore. I got elected and pushed and got that boat ramp and got that dock. Thanks to the Deputy Premier from Cayman East, who was a minister at the time, who helped me achieve that goal. This road, and Premier got the lights. Madam Speaker, this road has always been kicked around as a political football for over 20 years, as I can remember it, or earlier. And I intend to push this through also in the East-West Arterial. Madam Speaker, the Regen project, or ISWIMS, who I was a minister, who brought this forward, came to caucus just a few weeks ago, Madam Speaker. And the presenters said that the EIA will be in a phased manner. Why not the East-West Arterial? Madam Speaker, no one has to ask if I am publicly supporting this road. Madam Speaker, this EIA thing, I have my mixed feelings about EIA. I respect the environment, and I'll talk about that. The EIA, what I think an EIA should mean, Madam Speaker, is expedite immediately and aggressively. Madam Speaker, let's build the road, Hearst Road, to Lookout. Madam Speaker, nobody can come in this country and just come and do an EIA by themselves, you know. Somebody needs to request the EIA to be done, and the terms need to be set. Let's change these terms, Madam Speaker. It's only a dead man and a fool can't change their mind. We are responsible adults who have all come together, be it as crazy as persons might have thought, but they've lasted long than many have thought they would. We can last longer. I've shown my responsible nature in caring for the environment, Madam Speaker. I've protected more marine areas than any other country or any other minister in the region. No fish areas and protected areas of the ocean. I got killed for some of it by my locals. And when the chief officer came to me and said, "You want to go out for more public consultation?" I said, "Tell me what public consultation was done." I was satisfied, and I said, "No more public consultation. Let's do what is right. I want my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren to eat conch and be able to find one gilombo, though they can't eat that. Or two bone." So, Madam Speaker, me and Sir Alden, member for Red Bay, elected member for Red Bay, tried to change the NCA or the law. But we had friendly fire on board. You know what friendly fire is, Madam Speaker? It's a term they use in the army when one of their own members shoot their own colleagues. Most people who object to this consideration don't live in the stress we do in the East, Madam Speaker. As I said, and as was said across the road, let's get to the vote. So I won't be long, Madam Speaker. Not only do I support this 2,000%, but I want my people the relief they deserve to get out of their gates at 5 a.m. without a traffic jam, Madam Speaker. One more hour sleep, as the Bordentown West and North Side member said. Now, we can disagree on this side. We can disagree. But we don't have to be disagreeable. We have to be the government that makes the hard decisions. The government of the people. We owe to our people. We owe it to them. No one is less important in this country, Madam Speaker. And if we fail, Madam Speaker, if we fail to pass this motion and act, Madam Speaker, not only pass the motion, but act, Madam Speaker, we are saying that the Eastern District persons are not as important. That's my opinion. The Attorney General, Madam Speaker, has gave his advice, and I thank him very much. I respect and honor. He's a friend. I call him a friend. I hope he does call me a friend. But I want to state something. And when I call a person a friend, in the same sentence, I am not so unkind. I'll make an exception. All I want to say, Mr. Attorney General, is that Section 49 of the law states, directions to the council by the cabinet. The cabinet may give to the council in writing such general directions as appear to the cabinet to be necessary, having regard to the provisions of this law, the conventions and the public interests. The conventions and the public interests, and the council shall act in accordance with such directions. Mr. Attorney General, let's investigate further, sir. Madam Speaker, I don't have to raise my voice because it's quite strong already. But I will raise eyebrows with my actions if this road is not considered. Madam Speaker, in closing, I want to quote the lyrics of a song, and it's on the internet. You can Google this. It's not the same song as the honorable member from Red Bay said. It takes a fine time to leave me, Lucille. There's no leaving today. But what I want to say is, the song is by a group named Status Quo. Google it. The song is entitled Two-Way Traffic. Work, work, busy, busy, bang, bang. 25 hours a day, feel like working on a chain gang. I never seem to get away. Money to earn, money to burn. A platinum card for show. Where does it go? How should I know? And it's two-way traffic on a one-way traffic. On a one-way street. All the voices in the air are stuck on repeat. It's a two-horse race in a one-horse town. Like a house of cards, it's going to fall down. 4 players out. Get ready to rumble. Survival of the fittest, the law of the jungle. Fold back, hold back. Get yourself in a seat for two-way traffic on a one-way street. Superman, where are you? We need you to pave the way. Feels like an alien invasion. Trouble coming every day. War of the worlds. You get the girl. It really doesn't sound that bad. Fight in the snow, way to go. And it's two-way traffic on a one-way street. All the voices in the air are stuck. And I repeat, it's a two-horse race in a one-horse town. Like a house of cards that's going to fall down. 4 players out. Get ready to rumble. Survival of the fittest, the law of the jungle. Fold back, hold back. Get yourself a seat for two-way traffic on a one-way street. God bless this honorable country. God bless this government. God bless our decisions. May God give us strength and wisdom to make the decisions that make the lives of our people better in this country, even if sometimes it goes against some of the principles that we believe in. Let us tweak and move forward, for time knows no man. Thank you, Madam Speaker. God bless this country.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Minister, does any other member wish to speak? Honourable, the member for Savannah, if you happen to have any songs that you're going to be quoting from. Perhaps you could sing that for us today.
Then they might all run. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will be brief. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the private member's motion number 8, 2022 to 2023. I hereby rise to give this my full support. Madam Speaker, the same issues mentioned by the member of West Bay West are what we hear daily from our people in the Savannah Newlands area. I know the frustration, Madam Speaker. I feel it. And if I'm stuck in traffic, I know exactly what other people are going through. I don't have children in my vehicle, but I'm aware of the struggle from people daily. I can only imagine what parents face each day leaving home with children half dressed while trying to feed them their breakfast. Madam Speaker, this is no decent lifestyle for our people. For so many years, we've heard the road was going to go through or be built. Yet, it still sits there waiting for a few machines to begin the job. As previous speakers have said, Madam Speaker, sitting in traffic causes serious stress. Possible effects can include people opting for a job change due to stress and fatigue caused by the daily commute. Madam Speaker, I can't believe we don't have more road rage than we do. We all need a better quality of life. It needs to be found for our people. Yes, it must be done properly. But this is a national issue of importance and needs to be done quickly. As I said, I fully support the motion, Madam Speaker, as I know our people deserve some relief. I thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Any other member wish to speak? Then I'll ask the Honorable Minister for Tourism and Ports.
Sir. Madam Speaker, I'm nervous. Oh, I'm not going to sing. I learned that lesson a long time ago. I almost lost my way for trying to sing. Madam Speaker, I am going to try my endeavor best to deal with this as delicately as I possibly can, so not to have the opposition have too much smiles, because they're over there so happy right now to see the conflict across the way. No, they support the bill. This is not about the motion. Alden, me and you going, sorry, my apologies, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Member for Red Bay, we can talk about the application form after the debate. All right? That's the question. Madam Speaker, I hate to say this, but this topic that we are talking about sadly can be the demise of this administration. Madam Speaker, what we're faced with, and I was doing the numbers in the lunchroom just now, and as far as my recollection or my count so far is West Bay North, West Bay West, Georgetown Central, Georgetown East, Georgetown North, Georgetown South, Georgetown West, Red Bay, Bontown East, Bontown West, and now added to the count, Savannah, Northside, East End, Cayman Brac West, and Little Cayman. That's the count so far in support of this motion. So far, based on indications. Madam Speaker, maybe I'm being too preemptive. Madam Speaker, my point simply is this. Excluding yourself, it seems that everybody in this House is in support of this motion. Madam Speaker, I am going to suggest that we have heard all the issues, and I'm just going to, just for emphasis, highlight all the ones that I've recorded so far in respect to the issues of the lack of this road has caused. We have safety issues by way of emergency service road in the event of any accidents or major disasters. We also heard from the honorable member from Savannah about the potential for road rage and why she's surprised that we haven't had it already. I agree with her. Madam Speaker, we also heard about traffic and the potential mental health issues that come along with it with the major studies across the world. We've also heard members highlight the physical health concerns where potential for you being in traffic for too long, you can even get, and I quote, urinary tract infections. Obviously, we've heard about the effects on the quality of life due to families cannot spend time with their loved ones with the loss of up to 2 to 3 hours per day, being that of about 15 hours per week. We also heard about that loss of hours and how that loses and causes much loss in the economic productivity of our country. We also know that being in traffic for those many hours also has more emissions in the environment. We also know that the lack of this road hinders the economic diversification of this country. We also know the lack of this road causes us to be in traffic longer, which causes us higher costs, particularly for those in the eastern districts. Because the longer you're in your vehicle, the more fuel you burn, the more cost it is. And Madam Speaker, one particular area for the area of my concern is the Cayman brand damage. And I have to say to this Honorable House that traffic has come up on numerous occasions as a negative talking point for the country in relation to tourism and investor confidence. But I'm certain that if we ask the public today, that you would have a lot more people to add to that long list of the problems that this road is causing. But I want to go back to what I started with, Madam Speaker. It is assumed that all members of this House will support, and we have to wait till the vote. And Madam Speaker, if every member of this House is in support of the body of this motion, the question is, what will happen after this? You see, Madam Speaker, I recall being burnt by motions because I was in opposition where the game of let's accept a motion so the public can see that we are in support of something when there's no real support. And Madam Speaker, I think based on the conversations you've heard from the members of this House, there is a serious issue of trust and commitment to follow through. I didn't say by whom or which entity, but we no longer can hide from that fact that there seems to be some sort of invisible hindrance in the way of resolving this much needed road in a timely manner. Now, Madam Speaker, I'm going to get into the legality of what we can do as per this motion shortly. But I want to take us back to something very recent that we all are fully aware of, and that is in relation to the COVID vaccine. You see, Madam Speaker, I see the COVID vaccine as a prime example to this road development. You see, when the world needed a solution to an emergency, it got together and said, something that normally takes 10 years to accomplish by way of vaccine, the scientists decided to say, if you get all the brightest minds in the room at one time and you add all the research together, they can justify having a vaccine that is acceptable by the medical fraternity within a shorter period than the normal process. Now, Madam Speaker, I use that as an example here with the EIA. You see, Madam Speaker, there's two things going on here. One, we all believe the road needs to be done, and we all want to protect the environment. And I'm of the same thinking. So, Madam Speaker, the question is, why can't we, if it takes a normal environmental impact assessment, because remember I said now, Madam Speaker, this is all about timing. The people want to know how much longer do they have to wait. Are we going to wait for somebody to die? Are we going to wait till a child gets in trouble where a parent is not around at the end of the day after work? What are we waiting on? And I say, what are we waiting on? Because I know that we have at our disposal, if we wanted to, if you need 15 or 50 or 100 environmentalists who do the EIA, all working down here at the same time to make it done quicker, well, let's get that done. Because you know why? It's a national priority. Now, Madam Speaker, I don't know about you, but I'm a member of the government, and I still can't get a firm date on when this EIA is going to be finished. And Madam Speaker, I hate to do this because it's not always politically smart. They'll use it against you later on, but I have to agree with the former premier of this country. Is there true commitment to this or not? Madam Speaker, the motion speaks to the word considers, and that word haunts me to the bone. Because they say, see one apple here? Look at it, don't bite. Just consider, look at it and consider it, but don't bite it. That's what it says. And I am not going to allow this issue of national importance to just get the mark of consideration and it goes on the shelf, like my motion about pension withdrawal that the last administration agreed to because they didn't want to make it look bad in the public's domain that they weren't willing to help the people, and they go on a shelf. That's not going to happen with this motion, Madam Speaker. So there needs to be some action with this. Now, Madam Speaker, one thing I don't think any of us want to do is break the law. Are we going to get there?
Coming to come. None of us want to break the law. See, Madam Speaker, the big controversy here is, can the cabinet, the government, direct the National Conservation Council as to what this motion is requesting? That's what this boils down to, because I can't rightfully ask or expect any member, and I know the opposition themselves wouldn't want us to break the law. So we have to examine that notion. And I heard my honorable colleague in cabinet and in caucus speak to the National Conservation Law, and I refer to it, Madam Speaker. I don't have a copy, but if you need a copy of it, I've asked the Clerk of Parliament to bring the law for you, but it is section 48. And if you mind me reading from my phone with your permission. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It says, directions to the council by cabinet. Now I just want to make sure I re-examine it. I know that the honorable member, Minister for Labor, highlighted it, but I think it's worth repeating. It says in 49, the cabinet may give to the council in writing such general directions as appears to the cabinet to be necessary, having regard to the provisions of this law, the conventions and the public interest, and the council shall act, again, shall, in legal terms that means you must, shall act in accordance with such directions. Now, Madam Speaker, we discussed that, we've asked for advice, and the determination was, though you must follow those directions can only be general in nature. So therefore, this motion being very specific in its nature, the cabinet will not be able to do so. That's where we came to. That's the boiling point. So, Madam Speaker, it then boils down to the other question. If this country elected arm by way of majority, which is the voice of the majority of these people in this country, say they want something through their representatives, and they don't have the power to do it, but the council has the power to override the people's voice, we have a problem. Excuse me, Madam Speaker, can you give me 2 seconds? Thanks, Madam Speaker, for your indulgence. So, Madam Speaker, I go back now to the legality of where we're at. Because, Madam Speaker, if this went to referendum today, based on the support that I recognize, based on the voices of the people of this country, the people of Northside want the road done now. The people of East End want the road done now. The people of Northwood want the road done now. The people of Lookout Gardens want the road done now. The people of Savannah want the road done now. People of Newlands want the road done now. The people of Prospect want the road done now. And even the West Bay people, that the good member from West Bay West created that beautiful road to West Bay, even them want it done and they're infected by it. And I want to say to the good members of Georgetown, though we sometimes are on the opposite side, we respect the outer districts. Now, Madam Speaker, we're talking about traffic and the negative effects of it, in particular to this one road. And I'm going to talk a little bit later on in my speech about general traffic. Because I had to ask one question that I heard a very smart Caymanian say at one of the town hall discussions. I don't think it was town hall. I can't remember which hall it was they were at, but I was away for work at a conference, and I asked the council leader to please allow me to not come to the dinner because I was so, this meeting was so important, and I streamed it live and I listened to it. And a young man said, he was just like me, Madam Speaker, stuck between a rock and a hard place.
of the new generation wants to protect the environment but wants to solve the problem. So he said, how can we ensure that traffic does not continue if we build the road? And Madam Speaker, he has a right to ask that question. Because I tell you why. The National Development Plan is non-existent at this point. And the National Development Plan would have things like the diversification of much of our working locations. You see, Madam Speaker, I'm not sure if the good Minister of Roads highlighted this, but the big problem that we have, why we have so much traffic, is over 70% of our population lives in Bon Town, Northside, and East End. Not 70, I think it was 65 or something like that. More than that? Less than that. Okay. A substantial amount of people live, 18,500, thank you, good member, works to the east, or lives to the east. And every one of them have to come to the west because 90% of the jobs in this country are on the western side of the island. And Madam Speaker, you may have heard me say publicly on the radio that one of the key solutions to traffic in this country when I was the Minister for Transport and Public Transport, that is public bus transportation, not transport in its totality, is that what we need to try to do is move some of the working facilities outside of the western side. Now, how can we convince the likes of a Walkers, or Ernst & Young, or a Flowers Group, or anybody like that to develop to the east so we can stop having so many people drive from the east to the west? And you can only do that if you have a decent road service. Because, Madam Speaker, at this moment, we're using what you call a community road to service this whole country. Now, that community road was all right when we were in anything before 2000. But when we became a modern society, we needed modern roadways. And I wanted to send a big shout out to Mr. Arden McLean, who tried to do that. But he got a lot of pushback, quite similar to what we're getting back now in respect to the Ironwood Forest. But I'm happy to know that the good Minister of Roads have had good discussions with those who want to protect the Ironwood Forest, like myself, and found out ways to go around it. So there's solutions coming to that, and I won't say any more and allow him to make his own public utterances for the public to hear. But, Madam Speaker, without this roadway and infrastructure to the east, we will continue to see applications of working environments to the west. And this young man was right to ask the question. If we don't have the other things that go along with the traffic reduction strategies outside the road, the traffic will continue because the people are still going to get on it and come straight down to the western side of the island. So this approach can't be done by itself, but I must say, in order to start the ball rolling, it has to be the first domino to fall. And the longer we wait for it to fall, the longer it takes for us to solve the problem. And, Madam Speaker, we are politicians in this honorable house. And I know I have a good idea of going through 3 elections so far. And I saw examples of when people not happy with you and they don't think, especially when you're on the government side. But you were there. You were in charge. What do you mean you couldn't get it done? You think that the people, the voters, are going to say, oh, I couldn't convince my colleague. We are under pressure by our constituents to say, listen, I put you there. What are you doing? And you mean to tell me I'm in power and I can't get the road complete? They don't understand or care about the National Conservation Council. They want to be home with their children. You see, Madam Speaker, some people have different priorities. Some people, being home at 7 o'clock is not a priority. Because maybe they don't have kids. Or they can afford to stay on the western side of the island during the day or till night time because that's the affordability of their life. But Madam Speaker, again I say, if we were to put this to referendum tomorrow morning, I can promise you that the people would say, I don't care what the National Conservation Council say. The road needs to get started tomorrow morning. And I think it would get at least 70% of the vote in favor for the road to start tomorrow morning. And I tell you what, I know the listening public is hearing this debate today. And I encourage each and every one of you to call every radio station you have, call every representative you have, and tell the government you want the road done now. And you know the National Conservation Council members, tell them you want the road done now. And if this government doesn't understand that after you voice your opinion, you know what you got to do. So, Madam Speaker, if we are willing to accept this motion, that must mean that we're all willing to accept changes to the National Conservation Law to give the government of the day the power to instruct, direct, immediate action. Because we're saying, say again? Coming to a parliament near you, my colleague says. Because listen, Madam Speaker, what I'm trying to accomplish here is I don't want no shenanigans with this motion. We play too much shenanigans in this house. And it's new young members here now, and we don't want the shenanigans. It either is going to get the support by the majority of the democratic process of the members of this parliament, and it's going to be done, and you do what it takes to get it done, or you don't support it. Simply put. And by you looking and examining this, what this is asking you to do is, as a government in power, to give directives. And if you do not believe that power is within the law, that must mean you're saying you're coming to Parliament to change the law to allow the government of the day to have the power to give the direction. So when it's time for a division, because we're going to have a division today, who supports this? Remember what we're concluding. Because, Madam Speaker, we're playing too much political games with the people's lives. 2 years. When was the election? April what? April 14th. Today is, help me, former leader, the 27th. 2 years and 13 days. We knew the traffic problem when we took the government. As soon as we opened up from lockdown, everybody said, oh, the traffic is back again. And I'm going to tell you this, Madam Speaker. I stand here as a witness today. The Honorable Minister in charge of roads, almost. Some days I had to say, bro, calm down, calm down. You knew we got to deal with this like this, but we got to do it in the right way. How many times, I don't know what else left for him to do. He do it in a calm way. He do it in an aggressive way. He shout and scream. He write emails. He bring in presentations. He asks for discussions with every single stakeholder group. I don't know what is left for the Minister for Roads to do to get this road done. That's the only thing that's left, is for him to go in the bulldozer himself. But I wouldn't advise him to do that, because I know that's what they want him to do, to go too far, so they can use it against him. But no, 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 no. This generation now, our leaders can figure this out. And we're going to pressure today to make sure you either, how you go, poop or get off the pot. That's how this going to work. How you say that one go, member for Red Bay? Cut bait or fishing? Yeah. Cut bait or fishing. I don't know that one, but I think it as a cleaner one, he said. Madam Speaker, this debate is going to be all about the legality of this motion. Again, I say for the listening audience, I know I'm going to pick up licks for this because I can see the comments now. And I get to the environmental stuff here, and I will get there shortly. But this is about the legality of whether the people's voices by majority have power in this country. Because you know there's plenty of questions about the law and when it was passed and whether it was truly understood by the government of the day then. So let's not fluff. Member for Red Bay, you were going to say something, sir? You got a story. All right. It sounds like there's going to be some contribution from the member for Red Bay. Oh, yeah. All right. Good. So the country really going to fully understand what is transpiring here because we're going to stop playing games with the people. So, in writing. Okay. I leave you to that. That's above my pay scale. So we're going to get down to the legalities of what this motion is talking about. But, Madam Speaker, there's also benefits to what this road can do. Now, I know that the loudest voice out there right now is those who want to stop it, coming from a good place, man, say, you know. Those that I see who are pushing against it is not pushing against it, and in my humble opinion, from a negative place, but because of the lack of understanding of the balance that can be struck from an environment perspective. And you remember we were talking about just yesterday in my contribution about the definition of sustainability. Sustainability is only being discussed about the environment, not about the social impacts on the people and the economic impacts on the people, which has a social effect. Because if you don't have a proper economy, you can't get a job to feed your children, then you're going to have a social problem. And yes, we are surely adequate from an environmental perspective, and the concerns and the topics and the visions and the promotions. And I swear we pass more environmental pieces of regulations and legislation so far in this government than any other government so far in a short period of time. But it's time now to talk about the people. Because the benefits are, let's get down now to what I was talking about last night. This road is not only about traffic, Madam Speaker. If we genuinely want to hit the things that the people are concerned about, like housing and ownership of their country, you remember me speaking last night about the supply and demand equation and what opening up this road can do. And let me be clear this time. I'm not talking about the wetlands area, because the road, Minister, forgive me, I need you, because I need some information. How long is the road from Newlands to Frank Sound? Less than 12 miles. Now, Madam Speaker, of that 12 miles, yes, there may be a mile or two or possibly 3 that is wetlands that is designed to go through. And I agree with those out there who love and protect the environment, and I support your efforts, and I expect you to continue to do that. Because we're not going to try to develop the wetlands. About 3 miles of wetlands. 3 miles of it is wetlands, I just heard, confirmed. So that means there's 9 miles of arable land where we can get to help give more supply in the market for Caymanians to be able to afford a piece of property. Because again, like I said last night, if you add more supply to the equation, the price and cost must go down. 9 miles of hope. I like it. 9 miles of hope to change the opportunities for good quality of life for our people, to reduce the travel time, as well to give them opportunities to get a piece of property and potentially build a house within their cost range. Because the prices will go down, Madam Speaker, once you add supply to it. Madam Speaker, what it also does is allow us to not put no more pressure on the western side of the island. You know why everybody builds over here? You think about a business person and think about the things that they decide before they do a development. You think that the people who want to make money in this country wouldn't build east if it wasn't beneficial? You know why they don't build east? Because they recognize that their business equation and research tells them that the connectivity to the eastern side of the island is not sufficient, therefore they wouldn't have the profits that they need to make money. So that's why they don't do it. You don't think the likes of the Flowers Group or the Dart family, or let me bad example because I know they're going to say, oh my God, he said Dart. I should never have said that one. I'm going to pay for that one. But let's talk about the Cayman families. The Thompsons, the Colonels, the Flowers Group, well, he Caymanian too, but give me some other Caymanian name developers. Come on. Davenport Caymanian. Any Caymanian who got money in their pocket to say, we see the future of this country and we see opportunities. Bobby Borden. Why can't we, you know why they haven't developed that way? Because they see there's no benefit, not at this rate. And we can carry some of the jobs that direction. Madam Speaker, I'm happy to say one thing, that at least the discussion within our government has started. In respect to any future government development. You know, Madam Speaker, that there was supposed to be a second government building. Madam Speaker, currently right now, we are renting lease space that would equate to over 1.5 size of the government building due to the fact that we haven't built our second government building. And Madam Speaker, I dare say that this is a perfect opportunity to plan properly with this road to start to move and build a new city, build a new town to the eastern side. And matter of fact, maybe we should consider no more building to the west, period. Because all you're doing is compounding the problem. We need to stop people from coming this direction if you want to stop traffic. That's it. I hear my good colleagues from Cayman Brac suggesting to let them work in Cayman Brac, but fly them back home in the day. But I don't think Cayman Airways can afford that one. Madam Speaker, the EIA is just not being done fast enough. I don't think I've heard one member say they're not in support of the EIA. But I'm waiting for somebody to tell me that my suggestion just now of if you need to pay 3 times the amount of the price to get more specialists here to get the ball rolling quicker, that can't be done. And Madam Speaker, I still haven't heard the justification for why the whole EIA has to be done in all one long strip as opposed to in phases. You see, Madam Speaker, there's a commonality here that I'm getting at, you know. It seems to me, and I can only tell you by how I feel, and I'm happy if somebody can show me differently. Prove me wrong. Tell me that my feelings about this matter is incorrect. Because everything that I'm hearing and seeing, it seems to be another hurdle, another answer, another excuse, another this. There's no, yes, we're going to figure it out. Yes, we're going to do it faster. It's always no, 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 no. You know what the people are going to tell the elected people, the politicians come election? They're going to say, no, 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 no. Madam Speaker, I know that this conversation and this debate today will be discussed heavily tomorrow morning and for the rest of this weekend. But it has to be said. I know for myself and many other members on this side, when it comes to this one issue, we're not allowed to play any more games. We're fed up with it. Simply just fed up. And anybody with any political acumen or knowledge or experience would know what's going on. What's happening with the government? The members, one member is saying this, one member saying that. Yeah, that's right. Because members on this side have had enough and we want the road done. And we want the road done now. And I'm glad to hear, Madam Speaker, that the opposition members all agree with that position. Madam Speaker, you know the reason why I can't even invest heavily in the Eastern Districts as much as I want to with tourism? And the good former minister, I'm certain that he's heard this before. The reason why we can't do as much investments to the east is because the traffic time and the speed to get people to attractions, those beautiful attractions in the Eastern Districts like Bontown, Northside, and East End, we can't take them down there because they're worried that by the time the traffic, to get them there and to get them back to the boat, half of the day is gone. So, but I'm expected as a minister to diversify the tourism product. How can I do that if we don't have a good road system? Would you agree, former minister?
Not only that, but money can't stay in East End and Northside.
See? Money, the money, thank you so much. Elected member from Cayman Brack, West and Little Cayman. We can't even get the money to the East Enders and the Northsiders and the Bordentowners. And I trying my hardest. I want to almost pick it up and carry it to them. And the guy locked down because they won't do the road. You know why we wait around and delay this road? You know what happening? And I tell you, I said last night, I'm going to give a warning again. The foreclosure is coming. Because the interest rates haven't gone down. How can you afford to have an increase of 10% in cost? Unless you got a new job, unless you got a new hire or an upgrade, unless you made some serious sacrifices, there's going to be many Caymanians who are going to be in trouble. 7 interest rates hikes. And we're trying to get the money to them and can't get it to them. Madam Speaker, if we're going to talk about the National Development Plan, we have to talk about the East-West Arterial and the speed that it's done in. Some people out there don't want it to be done at all. I don't know how you can have a National Development Plan without the East-West Arterial. You know, what I'm most fearful of, Madam Speaker, about this is that we are allowing some to get in the way of this road because, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, but if somebody has to say it, so I'll be the one. I've always been the sacrificial lamb, so be it. There are some extremists environmentalists out there, right? And they're usually the ones with the loudest voice. Now, Madam Speaker, what I'm worried about with that is, you see, the general average person cares about the environment very much. That's our nature as Caymanians. We love our environment. But we want to live and eat and survive at the same time. And what is happening is, when people sit and they're sitting and getting nowhere and they're getting frustrated and all they're hearing is this and this, no, and they're hearing it from the extremist environmentalists, you know what you're going to have? You're going to have the opposite extremism push back. And those people who are affected in a negative way, they're going to say, you know, they don't care. I don't give no cahoots with no environment anymore. I want my road done. And that's when we're going to get in trouble, because that's when the whole thought process of the environment is going to go out the window, rather than having a balanced approach to this. When somebody can't feed their children because they can't get to work or they can't get home to cook, you think you're going to be able to tell them about any wetlands? Come on, man. You see, we keep on putting... This goes back to the state of nature, Madam Speaker. The priority of survival of life. You want to protect the environment? Make sure everybody who lives in the environment has good reason to put priority on the top of their list. The environment. When they're hungry, when they can't eat, when crime or education or these other things are problems, environment becomes the low part of the issue. You can't force it down their throat. You want to help the environment? Help a young Cayman who don't have a job. When they're making enough money to care and put environment at the top of their priority list, because food is not a problem, mortgage is not a problem, kids is not a problem, my health is not a problem. When you solve the other problems, then that jumps to the top. That's how you fix the environment. But, Madam Speaker, we don't want to talk about that. We think that you can force this down the throat. I'm going to tell you this today. The National Conservation Council, you need to reevaluate how you are approaching the vision and the plan you have to protect the environment, because you're going to create a generation of extremists who are going to come and say, I'm going to get rid of the law and tear it up altogether. You see how passionate I've delivered? You see how passionate the minister is? These are the new members coming of the future. And we're frustrated because you don't want to give our people freedom. You don't want to give our people sleep. And you're not clear about the information either. It seems to be tricks and games. You tell me now why my premier hasn't gotten up yet. Come on, man. Premier, Madam Speaker, I was hoping I wouldn't have to get up. I wanted to hear, because listen, let's just be serious about this. He's the Minister for Sustainability. This issue is an emotive one for many of us on this side. And because obviously some of us don't feel confident about this topic. If we had felt confident enough, we wouldn't be speaking like this. You realize if I didn't get up just now, you would have moved it back to the Speaker to close? You know what that would have meant, Madam Speaker? That means the opposition would have said, you imagine, not even a word from the leader. That's the reality. Now, people mightn't like the fact that I'm saying, oh, Kenneth, don't say that. That's the truth. This is not a joke. The road is essential to the people's lives. Now, if I had to pay the penalties for saying that, then so be it. We have to deal with this matter. Because you know what? Even investment is suffering as a result of it. People don't know what's going on. They're talking about a slowdown in applications. Ask the minister if there hasn't been a slowdown in applications. Maybe that's what they want. I don't know. Because people are worried. They say, is the National Conservation Council going to be in full charge, or is it the elected voice of the people? I always thought, maybe I'm a fool, I don't know. I always thought that we were the voice of the power in this country, the people. But it doesn't seem that way when it comes to this issue. Madam Speaker, I'm going to stop there. But I'll say this together. Park United. Park United. Park United.
And does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? The Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, ready, fire, aim. That is what we have been doing in this country. We have failed to plan and failed to address the issues that are now affecting the people in this country. And I don't blame any of my colleagues for being upset. What does bother me is they think that I'm not equally committed to addressing the interests of the people in this country. They might love this country as much as I do, but they don't love it any more than I do. They might love their people, our people, as much as I do, but no more. Madam Speaker, I want to paint a picture of what has transpired with this east-west arterial road from the time it was first planned. Madam Speaker, I'm going to go back to the 16th of March, 2005. And Madam Speaker, I'm happy to give you a copy of this, but this is just a summary of dates and events that transpired in relation to the east-west arterial. Madam Speaker, 16th of March 2005, the Department of Environment writes to the Managing Director of the National Roads Authority, saying that in connection with this planned extension of the road, an environmental impact assessment should be applied. Madam Speaker, what they specifically said was that this would represent an information gathering and rationalization phase during which all alternate options could be objectively identified and evaluated. I'm not going to go into much more on that, but that's 2005, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, between 2006 and 2014, there were some discussions about doing the road with a company called Eagle Assets Investments. Madam Speaker, it didn't move forward in that period. Madam Speaker, the 3rd of March 2014, the then Premier held a press conference where he said the $40 million 10-mile highway extension would go through a rigorous environmental impact assessment before being given the final go-ahead. Public record, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I supported that. I was a minister at the time. I was a minister for the environment at the time. I was requesting that we move ahead with an environmental impact assessment. Madam Speaker, 29th December 2014, the then Plahi Minister, Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure, writes to the Department of Environment and asks for assistance with the terms of reference. 13th of January 2015, the Department of Environment writes back with advice and asks for some additional information. The next correspondence, Madam Speaker, is the 28th of April 2016. So 1 year and 3 months pass with nothing being done. Madam Speaker, I remember having to drive through the traffic then. I've always lived in Newlands from the time I was 4 or 5 years old. So I know what it's like. Madam Speaker, I knew what it was like when we used to have to drive out to Tall Tree and make the right hand and come down to town along the coast road. I knew the difference it made having the east-west coming down, the bypass as we call it coming down. But we all know where the choke points are as well. Because as it is now, I come down and I run into the traffic before I get to the Tomlinson roundabout. But Madam Speaker, I am telling this Honourable House this and the members of the public listening so that they and my colleagues so that they have an idea of what has transpired in terms of the history of this project. Madam Speaker, 20th of April 2016, that planning ministry wrote back saying they do not want to do an environmental impact assessment. They said they knew what they were doing, and it didn't need to be done. They said that it was never required before, and it didn't need to be done. Madam Speaker, on the 2nd of May 2016, the Department of Environment responds saying an EIA is required and should be carried out. On the 29th of June 2016, an EIA directive is gazetted. On the 20th of September 2016, the ministry again writes to say they don't want to do an EIA. Madam Speaker, any developed country, any country that is in our region that you want to point to, almost every one of them requires an EIA. Anyone with a developed system of planning. You can't do a road in Jamaica without having an EIA done. You can't do a road in Bermuda or Belize without having an EIA done. Madam Speaker, at least something that when the road is built and becomes a fixed structure, you don't have to worry about what the impacts are because you have worked it out, you've assessed what they are, and you have managed either the environmental impacts or the impacts on society or noise or whatever it is. You see, because, Madam Speaker, an environmental impact assessment may mislead you by the name to believe that it is just about the environment. That is not the case, Madam Speaker. And if you look at the now published terms of reference for the environmental impact assessment for the east-west extension as proposed, which was published a couple of weeks ago, you will see that it's far more than just about the environment. It is working out impacts on the environment and how to mitigate it. It is working out impacts on flooding and stormwater management, noise, impacts on adjacent environments, impacts on the ability of other local traffic patterns to operate, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm going to skip down to 4th of April 2017. Sorry. 15th of March 2017. the Ministry of Planning writes to say they now wish to do an EIA. 2017, Madam Speaker. The Department of Environment wrote back to request information, including a plan for them to be able to prepare the environmental impact scoping opinion, to tell them what they needed to do. 1 year and 5 months passed with no interaction, no discussion, Madam Speaker, from the 4th of April 2017. 1 year and 5 months passed by. Yet, Madam Speaker, our people in the eastern districts of this island have been suffering traffic problems from then. There was no straight drive-in. You know what we experience today when schools are out and it's an easy drive-in generally? We had the same thing back then. The same issue back then, Madam Speaker. We would look forward to the day that the schools were out so that you would have an easier drive into work. Madam Speaker, 24th September 2019. The ministry then comes back to say, we don't want to do an EIA again. Right? Madam Speaker, specifically, the language was, while we do not wish to undertake an EIA for this section, we wish to be as sensitive to the environment as possible. Back and forth. Same problems. Our people have all this time been suffering traffic issues. Madam Speaker, 7th of October, 2019. The National Conservation Council considered the request and decides that an EIA should be undertaken from the Woodland Drive East area. From that point forward, they have been consistent with where the EIA should be done. Madam Speaker, the ministry came back and said, well, okay, we'll do the Woodland Drive to Harvey-Stevenson connector. Madam Speaker, I'm giving these dates just to say that these issues have been ongoing. They have been ongoing, Madam Speaker. 6 months pass, and there's no reaction or response. 9 months pass, there's no reaction or response. And Madam Speaker, I fully accept that this government should have been able to move faster. But when I say this government, I'm not talking about my colleagues. I am talking about the mechanisms that surround the agencies that are supposed to get this stuff done. Because we don't go and sit in the office, the minister doesn't go and sit in the office, Madam Speaker, to get it done. If there's a commitment to do an environmental impact assessment, the staff are supposed to be doing it, not the minister. Madam Speaker, this has been a source of frustration for all of us that live in the Eastern Districts. It's been a personal source of frustration for me. You know why? Because I have to then put up with suggestions, despite the fact that the Environmental Impact Advisory Board has been engaging and trying to get a response and getting flip-flopping answers from certain members of staff in the ministry at different points. Not the minister, but members of staff. Madam Speaker, how do we serve the interests of our people? By not making a decision, taking the thing forward once the decision is made at the policy level. Get it done. Get it done, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, 5 months passed between May and October, of 22. And the agency, the NRA, didn't engage. I have said in this House before, Madam Speaker, that I saw these issues coming. We were still having the same traffic problems. We've had traffic for ages, but I saw these issues coming. And I said to certainly the Department of Environment and people on the National Conservation Council, make sure you engage, make sure you do what you have to do to assist, because this needs to get done. I have said before in this Honorable House that I supported this road getting done, but I supported it getting done in the right way, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, other members have referred to the terms of the National Conservation Act as it is now, and the provision in Section 49, which refers to the ability for Cabinet to issue general directives or directions. Madam Speaker, there is no other agency that government gives the authority to make decisions to, where it retains the authority to say, you know what, I don't like the decision you made. I am going to make that decision for you. I'm going to give you a directive to do that very thing that I gave you the authority to make a decision in relation to. But this is why, Madam Speaker, our system doesn't work as well as it should. Because once a decision is made, once the government is saying, we support an AIA being done on this, we want this to move forward as quickly as possible, why isn't it done? Why do we have these failures and these long gaps over years where nothing is done, Madam Speaker? And then the people of our districts, our constituencies, rightly, as members have noted, look at us and say, what are you doing? Have you done anything for us? And we say, look, we're the policymakers. We asked for this to be done. Now, unless somebody else can tell me that there's someone else saying, don't do it, which I'm not aware of. And when I say don't do it, I know it's not on the National Conservation side, because I have gone to them numerous times about this issue, Madam Speaker, just to say, not to tell them what to do, but to tell them, make sure you engage. You see what I read out here, Madam Speaker, these long periods from all the way from back in 2005, where there's been all this flip-flopping, and 1 year, 3 months passed with no interaction. 1 year, 5 months passed with no interaction. 6 months passed with no interaction. 9 months passed with no interaction. Madam Speaker, that's a recipe for disaster. I went to the National Conservation Council, I spoke to members, and I said, please make sure you engage with the agencies that are required to be doing this, because they will transfer their failure to you. We need to get this moved forward and done. But the answer, Madam Speaker, although I am telling you right now, Madam Speaker, I support this road. My colleagues know that I support the road, despite comments you may have heard suggesting that somehow some unseen hand, must be like the hand of God in that football game, Maradona football game, where he scored that goal without kicking the ball. None of that is happening, Madam Speaker. None of that is happening. What is happening is we have people who are not engaging to get this done. Madam Speaker, 2005, well, let me just start from 2014 or 2016, when the scoping opinion was issued to confirm an environmental impact assessment would be required. That's 7 years ago, Madam Speaker. You know how many EIAs you can do in 7 years? Madam Speaker, this should have been done. It should have been done. That is how we serve the interests of our people, to act with pace, act efficiently, and deal with the matters to be able to deliver for them, so that people don't have to get exercised to this point where they feel like something's happening and things aren't going forward. But I'm saying they're looking in the wrong direction. Looking in the wrong direction, Madam Speaker. And I heard my colleague talking about what happens with the environment when people feel like they don't have the ability to live. That's fair enough, Madam Speaker. That's fair enough. But the environment is much more fundamental than that. Because without the environment, without green, we're not here either. We don't live, Madam Speaker. Nature does not need us. We need nature. But this is not about some plan or some scheme to prevent a road from happening, to prevent the work from being done to move the road along, Madam Speaker. That's not what it's about. And Madam Speaker, I do want to say that I think my colleague who spoke earlier in terms of the EIA that is being carried out in relation to the ISWIMS project, I think there is a misunderstanding, or somewhere along the line there must have been a mistake made of information or something along those lines, Madam Speaker. Because what is happening with the environmental impact assessment for the Regen project is a normal process. It is just that when you go through the normal process and the work is being done, at the end of it, they submit like a 25-chapter book, work product, which sets out what is being done, what has been done, what assessments have been made, what were the results. And then they work on the potential steps to mitigate those impacts, whether they be environmental or whether they be issues which impact the lives of people, whether it's flood control measures, whether it's noise control measures, Madam Speaker. There has a broad range, Madam Speaker. But that book, once it gets submitted, normally, then that book gets reviewed, and then it ends up getting submitted to a draft environmental impact statement, which then goes out to public consultation. In the ISWIMS project case, Madam Speaker, I think the misunderstanding comes about because what was agreed was that instead of waiting for the 24 chapters to come in one time, they're considering 2 or 3 or 4 chapters as they move along. It's not speeding up the EIA process in terms of the work to be done, but they're considering chapters as they move along in order to assist in getting the right results, the right kind of work product, without having the review to be done at the end of the period with the 25 chapter book, which says, oh, chapters 5 and 6 and 8, there are some deficiencies there that you need to go and address. That's what that is about, Madam Speaker. It doesn't necessarily speed that up. So I say that, Madam Speaker, simply to note that this is not a question of changing the rules, of taking different standards, and it's not a question of favoring one type of project over another type of project, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the same approach could be taken with the environmental impact assessment for the East-West. Now, this discussion is, thank you, the discussion is, or the consider part of the motion is whether this can start from, whether the environmental impact assessment could start from Lookout to go east. Madam Speaker, we've had these discussions about it within government. And I've had those same discussions with members of the NCC to say, is this something that's viable? Is this something that could be considered? They have indicated to me in the past, and I can't tell you what they might say to me a week from now, but they've indicated to me in the past that they still think that the conclusions that they came to originally, with the original scoping opinion, remain valid. And they are expressing frustration to me, Madam Speaker, that things aren't moving along as fast as they should. And as I said to you, I've said to them, please continue to push. Continue to engage. Don't wait. And Madam Speaker, we have all kinds of processes. We serve the people of this country in all kinds of applications and ways. And Madam Speaker, sometimes you see an application come to you through a cabinet paper proposal, and it was started 8 months ago, or 10 months ago, or 12 months ago. And I say, what's the reason for this delay? Why has this taken this period of time? Sometimes, Madam Speaker, you get the answer you don't want, which I don't want for sure, which is, well, they sent this in and it wasn't complete, and I asked them to provide this information, so they didn't get back to me for 6 months. So I said, well, you know what happens? When you don't get back to them for 6 months and follow up, they say it's your fault. Madam Speaker, we, I think, have in government, just as you have to do in the private sector, when you are serving customers and building a reputation of service and delivery, you have to be proactive. You have to go back and say, hey, ding, 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 I haven't heard from you. Let's follow up on this. You have to be proactive, Madam Speaker. And that is, to me, what has been reflected in this process for so long. Sorry, I'm not suggesting that they weren't being proactive. They were being proactive at times. But there are periods here where I think there should have been a follow-up. There should have been a request. So 1 year and 3 months shouldn't have passed by with no communication in relation to the EIA on this road, Madam Speaker, in 2015. 1 year and 5 months should not have happened in 2017, Madam Speaker. 6 months, 9 months, Madam Speaker, none of this should have happened. The agencies should have been proactive, both parties, and this certainly when I come along and I am encouraging my side of the equation to make sure that you engage. Make sure that you follow up. Make sure you provide as much assistance as you can. Because, as I said earlier, even with the people who apply for other things, other licenses and whatnot, it's human nature. They don't get it until a year later. There's very little thought about, well, actually, 8 months of that, I didn't respond. It is the agency that has to deal with it that gets blamed for it, Madam Speaker. So there's a little bit of blame to go around, but since coming into office, we have been committed to trying to get this moved forward, Madam Speaker. And I have been personally engaged in pushing this matter from last year In fact, at the end of 21. I think, Madam Speaker, that's why we finally got to the point now where we have a published set of terms of engagement, terms of reference for the EIA. Madam Speaker, we have to support the needs of our people. Of course, we have to be responsible as well. We have to make sure that we are not doing something which is going to provide either irreversible impacts on the quality of their life, the value of their property, their ability to utilize it, or ones that are going to cost a lot of money to rectify. Madam Speaker, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in the 50s did a lot of work draining, putting in canals, crisscrossing the state of Florida, which, as we all know, is a peninsula, probably 900 miles long at least, maybe more. They did a lot of work, cutting all these canals, connecting to lakes, putting in additional drainage lakes, in order to drain the water off the land, Madam Speaker, so that big sugar companies that bought this land or leased this land and were able to grow on it, grow sugar cane, Madam Speaker, made a lot of money doing it. The scientists and the marine biologists are wondering, what's happening with Florida Bay? Why are all of the seagrass areas in Florida Bay dying off? Why is this important? Why is this important nursery for millions, probably billions of species that inhabit the area, that go down the Florida Keys, that provide all of the fish, the environment, that all the tourists go down to the Keys for to enjoy. All the people who live in the Keys enjoy from a quality of life perspective. It was all dying off. The seagrass was dying off. They knew without that healthy seagrass, they were in big trouble. The state was in big trouble. Madam Speaker, the state of Florida has probably spent in excess of $2 billion since they realized that, undoing all of the work that had been done by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to drain all the water off. They had to find ways to restore the Everglades, to restore the natural flow of water that went from north to south and then eventually flowed out into Florida Bay and provided this flow of fresh water, Madam Speaker, that helped to flush the grass beds and keep them healthy, helped to continue to support those grass beds where manatees are born and feed, where millions or billions of juvenile species utilize as a marine nursery, which the entire state benefits from, which the entire length of the Keys benefit from, Madam Speaker. That's just an example of how you can do things without having an idea of the long-term impacts. And then when you realize what those long-term impacts and you realize how undesirable they are and how desirable it is to fix it, then you're confronted with a situation with the kind of price tag you have to pay in order to resolve it. Madam Speaker, I don't want our children being raised in cars either. I don't. I don't know if it's going to be an extra hour of sleep. But, Madam Speaker, I'm sure it's an appealing idea. But whatever it is, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that will help. That'll make a big difference. You know, if you drive for an hour normally, and you suddenly find that your drive is 45 minutes, you're gonna notice that's a very appreciable difference. So, Madam Speaker, I am happy to engage further, to push more than I have, to help as much as we need to ensure that we get a reasonable solution to this issue so that the people of the district, the constituency of Bordentown East, Bordentown West, they get immediate relief, but then the people from North Side, the people from East End can as well. Not by a direct route, Madam Speaker, perhaps at that point, but they will be able to benefit, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, there is another important question. And I know members have heard me discussing this, talking about this. I've discussed this in this Honorable House, and I've discussed this on the radio. I've discussed this at public meetings. I've discussed this in private meetings. Madam Speaker, even if we had approval tomorrow to build the road, it would still be probably close to a year, if not more, before it's built. But the issues that our people are facing, they're facing today. They faced them yesterday. They faced them 3 years ago, 5 years ago too. So there's a lot of blame and a lot of failure to go around, Madam Speaker, but we have to make sure we address it now. But how do we resolve, how do we provide some relief to what they're feeling? Do we say, listen, hold on, suffer for another year or whatever it takes to get, even, as I said, even if it was approved tomorrow, suffer for another year, suffer for another 14 months. Is that what we're going to tell them? No, Madam Speaker. We have to provide some interim solutions to address what our people have been feeling. Madam Speaker, I hear yawning across the way, and I don't know who it is, but I'm only saying. They had the opportunity to do it 3 years ago. Well, I'll give them a break. 4 years ago. 5 years ago. I know before that, I was a part of the government too. My colleagues on the, people who were my colleagues on the other side there, I don't think could ever say that I wasn't pushing and saying this needed to get done. The EIA needed to be done. So that we could move this along. So that we don't have this situation where all these years later, 7 years after the scoping opinion was issued to confirm that an EIA would be required, we still don't have an EIA, not even one EIA done, because of the failure to engage and push it along. Madam Speaker, I don't want to impugn anybody's motives. I don't want to criticize unduly anybody, but when we have a situation like this, we have to say we have to do better. We have to, Madam Speaker. It's not a good reflection on the mechanisms, the agencies, and us, the people who are put here by our representatives, our voters, who asked us to stand up for them, asked us to advocate for them, asked us to help make sure that the
policies and solutions are provided to address their concerns. So, Madam Speaker, this issue is not the kind of issue that some people may perceive, in that there is some kind of hidden agenda. Madam Speaker, yeah, are there people out there who don't want the road built? Absolutely. You can't find one single issue that this country deals with or this parliament deals with where everybody to a person says, yay, we're behind you 100%. You're not going to find that. There are concerns that this is going to have too much of an environmental impact. Madam Speaker, I have been on record where I have said, my concern, when you're looking east on that road, my concern is to the left. The central mangrove wetland. To the right and to the south, by the way, left is north when you're looking east. My concerns to the right and to the south are that they do things properly. They do a better job with planning. They do a better job with stormwater management. They do a better job with making communities more livable than we've done in the past. That's what I'm concerned about, Madam Speaker. We have a housing task force which is going to roll out a number of initiatives very shortly, which will talk about these kinds of issues, Madam Speaker. And we will be putting initiatives in place. We will be supporting it with legislative changes where necessary, because it's a part of the solution for our people to be able to get access to housing, to get on the property ladder, get on the home ownership ladder. That helps to define us as successful people, as good middle-class families that are working their way towards a better life for themselves and their children. So, Madam Speaker, enough of the ready, fire, aim. Enough of that, Madam Speaker. This country and our people are tired of failures that are only coming to bear impact on them in greater and greater ways today, because we have not been doing what we should. We've been kicking the can down the road. Kick it with the left, kick it with the right. Kick it with the left, kick it with the right. Let's see how far we can kick it. Madam Speaker, you got a song out of it? All right. I won't ask you for any royalties. Madam Speaker, we have to do better. We have to do better. And we will do better. But, Madam Speaker, the answer isn't just listening to somebody else and saying, okay, let's go and argue about why we shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. Let's work it out together. Let's get everybody around the table, say, okay, how can we speed this up? How can we resolve this issue? How can we move this forward? How can we deliver faster and better for our people? Madam Speaker, it doesn't matter to me whether I'm here or not, Madam Speaker. I want to leave a mark where people can say a difference was made for the people of the country. Not somebody who constantly kicked the can down the road. Not somebody who was afraid to make
to face challenges, not somebody who was afraid to make hard decisions. Because I am not afraid of any of those things, Madam Speaker. I fear no issue and no one besides the wrath of God. Let's get it done, Madam Speaker. Let's stop pretending. You know, there's that old saying about when all is said and done, a lot more is said than done. Well, time we stop talking about this and figure out a way to resolve it. Because it's been 7 years since the EIA was required. It's been since 2005 that this is being discussed, Madam Speaker. Why is it that we have too many issues in this country that seem to take 15 years or 20 years before somebody comes along and says, okay, I'm going to grab this by the horns now and we're going to wrestle this to the ground and figure out how to do it. It seems that that's the pattern with so many things. Madam Speaker, this ain't got nothing to do with the National Conservation Act. Got nothing to do with that. National Conservation Act has been in effect fully since probably about 2014, 2015. It was passed in December 2013 by all members of this House at the time on third reading, Madam Speaker. After 33 changes were made to it to ensure that it reflected comments and the views of quite a number of the members of this House today, but others as well, who are not here today, Madam Speaker. Yet, Madam Speaker, we have lots of people today saying they are really concerned about runaway development as they see it, about it having an impact on their quality of life. If my WhatsApp is full every day, every morning, every night of people sending pictures, sending videos, sending comments, sending requests. Please make a difference. Please make it stop. Please. We feel like we're under threat enough as Caymanians. So if that's out there, Madam Speaker, how could that happen if the National Conservation Act was preventing things from happening? If you look at the statistics, 1%, 1% of applications that have been made and considered by the National Conservation Council have been required to do an environmental impact assessment. 1 out of, I don't know what the number is right now. The last number I was aware of, that was probably mid last year, approaching 4,000, 3,800, rounded up, rounded down, I can't remember exactly, somewhere in that kind of area. But today, that must be 4,400, 500, 600, I don't know exactly what it is. But I do know that statistically, the requirements for an EIA is still around 1%. These things are included as requirements, Madam Speaker, not because anybody's trying to stop development, not because anybody wants to stop a road, but because the country and the agency doing it needs to be better informed about what the potential impacts are and how to stop the negative aspects of those impacts so that we can spend the money safely, provide value for money for the people of this country, provide the benefits that they want and need from whatever the infrastructure is that we're talking about doing. Whatever the development is, Madam Speaker. That's why we do these things. So that we don't end up like Florida spending billions of dollars to undo a problem that was created 50 years earlier, 70 years earlier. I don't remember exactly what the time frame was. Well in excess of 50 years, probably 70, 80 years later. That's not how we don't want to leave that legacy for our children, Madam Speaker. We don't want to have that situation develop. And guesswork isn't good enough on something that's really important, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I don't have a problem with the motion. Considering the circumstances, considering where we're at, considering what the people have been suffering, considering what we need to be able to do, let's sit down and consider how we're going to get this thing done, Madam Speaker. That's what's important to us, not chest beating. That's what it's important to our people. Because I can tell you, you give them something and you get short-term benefit from it, and it isn't done properly, for sure, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, when the reality hits home and the bill comes in, it can be your name that gets blackened, it can be you that gets blamed, not you, Madam Speaker. I mean us, I mean politicians, policymakers, and perhaps some of those who are involved in the agencies. We will all get blamed for it. And you know what? You know who pays the bill? The government. The country pays the bill. Because at the end of the day, when big bills come in, when you don't manage finances properly, when there are overruns, when a company is building something, they got their budget, and they got a 25 to 50 to 75% overrun, most of the time they can't go to the bank because they already done the financing, and the financing is considering a 25% margin contingency. And if you go above that, you got to go back to the shareholders. You have to ask your shareholders to put in additional money to help make up the difference. Our shareholders, Madam Speaker, are the people of this country that elected us and put their trust in us to make the right decisions for them, to consider and talk to them when we need to get their input and their views, to recognize when they are facing challenges, to recognize when we have to push harder to get something done for them. Today, Madam Speaker, is day one that we have to push harder. And anybody who isn't pushing along, the people gonna have problems with them. They gonna have problems with the people. And if I'm here, I gonna have problems too with them. I got to be behind them, pushing and reminding and saying, this is what we said we were going to deliver for the people of this country, and this is what we have to do. Madam Speaker, failure to deliver for all these years now is unacceptable, and failure to deliver meaningful interim solutions to address the problems, to provide some real kind of relief for our people for the time being. Failure not to put those in place, not an option, Madam Speaker. Because we can't abandon our people for the length of time it takes to address the issues, to ensure that we're able to provide a final solution. Madam Speaker, I've never in my life been afraid of failure. I failed plenty of times. That's how you learn. But this is one thing, Madam Speaker. I'm old enough to know how to avoid failure. I'm old enough to know how to push and get things done. Now, We have to do this, Madam Speaker. Whatever the feelings of anyone, I hope I haven't offended anybody with straight talk. This is what it is. Madam Speaker, I thank you, and this country deserves our best efforts, and we must deliver. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Premier. I think this is a good time for us to take a suspension. The meal is in the dining room. We'll resume at 8 o'clock.